Okay, good evening and welcome to the Goffstown Select Board, July 13, 2026 regular meeting. If you will, would you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone seen the June 22nd public meetings, minutes? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes, 6/22/2026, public and non-public if corrections are needed as well.
Seconded.
A motion by Mark, second by Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I don't see any announcements. Anybody have any announcements? Okay. Open the floor for public comment. Anyone have any public comment for not anything specific on the agenda today, but just anything? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on. Maybe with the fire chief, do you want to do the grant? We got a little time. This is added this week. No.
Sorry, Jim, which one?
Not the public hearing, the one that you added.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have an opportunity to apply for a grant, and what I'm asking for is, I've been working with a couple departments in the area to look at possibly regionalizing our EMS transport capability and utilizing limited resources in the entire region a little bit more effectively. That is a gigantic project and very costly to look into the studies and stuff like that. However, right now is an opportunity for us to get a grant that's 100% funded that could actually pay for the study of that. So unfortunately, the grant, as I gave you guys the dates, it's a very short window, so I profusely apologize for getting to you today. We're still working through some issues. Goffstown technically right now is not considered a rural community, nor is Ware for some odd reason, but cities like Concord are, so we're working through that. So we do think we have some workarounds, especially since it's this original project. So we do think we're still going to be eligible. As of right now, looking at the face, we're not. However, we are working with the grant administrators, and they're trying to help us because they like the idea of the project and it goes towards the project. So what I'm asking for is permission to apply for so just apply for the grant is what I'm asking for. It's just permission to do that.
Any commitments, Chief?
No commitments.
And can you kind of explain at high level around the regionalization?
Sure. So as we know, staffing among all emergency responders nationwide is a significant issue, especially here in New Hampshire. We've definitely been dealing with it here in Goffstown. So what we're trying to go to is more of a regional approach that a lot of other states have gone to. We want to look at some options with that, and there's a lot of stakeholder involvement to get something like that done. Because especially here in New Hampshire, so much of what we do is local based, local control, and it's going to take a lot for people to get in the mindset of, if they want to use resources more efficiently and save money over the long term, that we need to start looking at these out of the box ideas and changing the way things that have been done. As you and I have talked about before, is this town relied so much on our volunteers for a very long time.
Yep.
And we're very successful in doing that a lot longer than most communities in the state. And there are a lot of towns struggling right now to get resources, and we want to use our resources the best we can. As I came in when I applied for this position as a resident, I want to try to find as many opportunities for us to decrease our taxes and use our resources efficiently. This is one of those ideas.
So this would almost create like a county level fire department, or?
what the project is going to do is look at what options do we have and what are the pluses and minuses. The grant project I'm proposing would do a study, and that study audience would actually be this board, as well as other boards in the area and the communities that we serve. It wouldn't be towards us. So what I've seen in similar studies before is, hey, here's 4 or 5 different options. Here's the pluses and minuses of those,
Yeah.
as well as the steps that you would need to do in order to enact it, and how it would work from there. And I was just having a conversation before with another peer, is a lot of this is, if we're looking at decreasing costs, we need to let go of a little control and go to a regional system. And that's really tough for some people.
Yeah, it may not be reducing costs, but more spreading it out amongst communities that basically.
So that's the thing is, like we've seen, we had that 5-year span, right, of just the fire trucks, 28% increase in over 5 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. So does our area really need that many in total? That's the question I want to see answered.
Cool.
Any other questions? Okay, motion?
Make a motion for allowing the chief to partake and apply for the grant. They would fund a study to determine alternative EMS service models for our region.
Second.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Mark. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Can the police chief do the highway safety recommendations in 7 minutes?
Yes, he can. He's got it. He's got it.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, what tab are we on?
You're at tab 7.
7.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. Here to present the June 10th Highway Safety Committee's recommendations. So we had 2 that we talked about up front. The first one we had was a parking complaint on Norman Road at the bottom of the hill closest to South Mass involving parking with the Goffstown Junior Baseball. The Highway Safety Committee took a look at it. We did recognize that during baseball season, typically on Sundays, sometimes on some Saturdays, there's multiple cars parking on both sides of Norman Road. We decided as a committee not to take any action on that, as instead of putting a no parking on each side of the road, we decided that I have the power just to put a temporary no parking sign up there, which we did, which curbed those people from parking on that side, which basically the board, the Goffstown Junior Baseball Board put out another email saying just don't park there, and they basically, everybody kind of went on the other side of the street, and hasn't been a problem since. So our plan would be to, during that first couple of months of baseball season, to let them know to continue to kind of help with the ease of parking on both sides, and then we can just put those little quick signs in there without changing town orders, without going through public hearing. It's just a quick thing we can do. So the Highway Safety Committee decided to take no action on that.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that one.
I'll make a motion that we take no action on the Norman Road, Goffstown Junior Baseball fields.
Your second?
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Allison, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, the next one came from a resident up on the area of Shirley Hill, up by Bryan Road. There's a significant curve up there. His concern was that on one side of the curve coming up the hill, there's basically a sharp curve sign ahead and some chevrons, but on the other side there wasn't. We took a look at it. I do agree with him. We probably should have some indicating signs on the other side of it, closer to Bryan Road, letting motorists know that there's a sharp curve coming up. We also recognize that there probably should be some more chevron signs closer to that side, that as you're coming down, you see those chevron signs turning to alert motorists. Incidentally, we've had more accidents on the other side coming up the hill, crashing down there in the past with all the signage, not the other way, but I still think that it should be well posted. The other conversation we had as highway safety was, you'll see in the memo here, a ball bank test. That is a way that DPW can go out and they can do what's called a ball bank test. They have this little ball that tells you a recommended speed for the curve. And that's the only way we can put out a recommended speed, because the person requested to have a recommended speed to slow down. So highway safety recommended putting the chevron signs, the other 90-degree or sharp curve ahead sign, and then authorizing DPW to go out and do a ball bank to see if we should put a reduced speed sign up there.
So there may be a follow-on.
So I would ask if we make that recommendation is, if the ball bank does show that there should be a sign that says reduced to like 15 or 20, that you allow DPW to put that on there, so we can just kind of put this one.
Be done with it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to direct DPW to conduct a ball bank test and add 2 chevrons to the curve, as well as authorize both the chief and DPW to put the recommended speed in there off of the ball bank test.
Perfect.
Second.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Mark. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All
Thanks,
set?
Chief.
3 minutes?
Nice
4
job.
minutes? Thank you.
What else can we get done in 3 minutes?
What you might want to do is invite the fire chief back up. He can give the background on
Okay, we
this
can get going.
particular
Okay.
grant, and then you could open up the public hearing for it.
Okay,
Sounds great.
Chief?
Musical chairs.
Evening, so tonight we have the public comment for acceptance of the grant, $250,000 towards the replacement of our fire engine, which is already slated to be replaced, that you have already approved to be replaced. The grant itself comes from the Volkswagen lawsuit, and that's where the funds are at the state level, and then towns apply for it to basically make their fleet cleaner, more efficient. So that's what it does. The big catch with this grant is that the vehicle has to be scrapped, the engine has to be scrapped at the end. So you'll see in the terms and conditions, the frame has to be cut, the engine has to be drilled. But we weren't planning on giving it to another department anyway when it's done. The reason, again, just to keep you guys in the loop, is we applied for 2 separate grants for this. The other one that the state has money for through DES was very similar to it, but because of the time frame of how long it takes to build the trucks, that we were not able to get within that window, and we are at the maximum for that window right now.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Is there anyone here for public comment on the New Hampshire Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust Grant application? Okay, hearing no one, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, and we can vote on that tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to accept and expend unanticipated funds pursuant to RSA 3195B totaling $250,000.00 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, New Hampshire Volkswagen Environmental Mitigation Trust, Granite State Clean Fleet Grant Number NHVW 202601007, to be used to reduce diesel emissions by replacing the town of Goffstown's 2005 E1 fire engine, noting the total cost of this project will be $1,090,979, which the town will be responsible for a 20% match, which is $840,979.
Seconded.
Okay, motion by Allison, seconded by Richard. Any further comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Now we have Community Development Block Grant Project for Medvil. and that's open for public hearing. This one is broken up into 3 public hearings, 3 parts, correct?
Yes, and you have a pretty specific language in your
Yep.
packet at page 6.
Yep.
That unfortunately, the board really should read all and open it for public comment on the 3 different items. This helps satisfy the application process when it goes to CDFA.
Okay, this
Tell you
public,
what, I'll read if you want, but I have to ask you to wait till 6:20, because that's what it said in the paper. So can you do something else for a minute?
oh, it says, does say 6:20.
If you'd like, I can do consent agenda.
Yeah, we can do that.
So
What tab?
8C. So in your consent agenda, you have employee status reports. You have full-time patrol officer, successful end of probationary period. You have a new hire of a patrol officer. You have a resignation of a master patrol officer, and you have a resignation of a full-time dispatcher. In firefighter, we had a successful end of probationary period and resignation. Public Works, you have a full-time scale house operator, a full-time truck driver, and full-time heavy equipment operator, all receiving their Waymaster differential per the collective bargaining agreement. Parks and Rec, you have a lifeguard 2 seasonal new hire. You have event permits for a craft vendor fair on August 15, 2026 from 10 to 1. That's at the Bel Air Nursing Home. You also have a deposit voucher for the Grassmere Town Hall Restoration Fund in the amount of $20. And then you have an off-cycle betterment assessment. This is for the Lynchville Danis Park Drinking Water Project in the amount of $579.15.
Okay,
Make
motion.
Make a motion to approve the consensus agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Allison. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I guess one other one, we can, we've got about 4 minutes. At tab 8B, you have a proposed memorandum of understanding between the town and the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. So the Village Bridge Ad Hoc Committee has been working with the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail, and this is something that this board directed them to do as part of the revised charter. What you directed them to do as part of the revised charter was to develop a memorandum of understanding between Friends of Goffstown Rail Trail and the town to clearly define responsibilities, procedures, and accountability regarding funds and pledges. You have a copy of that proposed memorandum in your packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions board members might have this evening. And what I'm seeking is, do you want to move forward with this and send it? I would recommend sending this to the town attorney for review and suggested revisions.
Any questions?
Where's the pedestrian bridge that they're talking about? Or where would it be?
Where the old railroad bridge, right next to Main Street, between Rotary Park and the bridge abutment over the river.
I noticed it.
Where the 2, you'll see on both ends, the granite blocks that are set up.
Oh,
Go from there to
so
there.
like the end of the rail trail?
Yes.
You can kind of see.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay,
This is only for the online funds that they get there?
So this would be for all fundraising designated for the bridge. Basically, the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail would be the 501c3 accepting those grants and holding those. And then it also talks about a procedure of what would happen if the select board decided to cease all activities related to this fundraising project.
So even if they're raising towards the bridge, they're gonna deduct administrative fees at 50%, right?
Yes. Well, sufficient funds to cover 50% of administrative expenses. So that would be their post office box fees, governmental fine fees, their website fees, and then correspondence directly related to this agreement.
And you're just looking for a motion for us to send it to council?
Yes, or if there's anything in here that you've got big concerns about, we can bring it back to the bridge committee.
How would it be covering like the 20% requirement that we have to put down? Does that need to come from the town or the TAP grant? Do we know?
So the TAP grant, that was the whole idea, was
Yeah.
to work with Friends of Goffstown Rail Trail to start collecting those funds between now and 4 years from now when that grant opens up again. And that's what that 20% is.
So that's what we need. We need to make sure that there's a good fiduciary handoff and how that
Yes.
occurs. So that's probably where the attorney would come in
Yes.
to understand if we need some sort of like another accounts
Yep.
set up here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to have this reviewed by the town attorney and give us guidance on how this would work with the TAP grant and for paying for the bridge should we win a TAP grant.
Second?
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Mark. Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, now, go to tab 6. Do you like reading?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay.
You can open the first public hearing, I will read to you.
You can just state your name and your address for the record, though, please.
Donna Lane, Madison, New Hampshire, CDBG consultant.
Okay, this is not your first rodeo.
Now,
Okay.
okay, are you have you opened the
Yeah,
first
read
one
that.
on the
Right.
proposed application?
Right. Read from Community Development Block Grant Funds, from there, that paragraph.
I think she wants you to read this one
Oh.
first. Jen. You're
Oh.
opening the cup.
Oh, I thought I did.
No.
Okay. Okay, first, I'm opening the public hearing on the proposed infrastructure improvements at Medvil Cooperative CDBG application.
Thank you.
Okay.
So there are handouts available here if anyone's interested. Community Development Block Grant Funds are available to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 is available for economic development projects, up to $1 million in supportive housing projects, up to $750,000 for housing projects, up to $750,000 for public facility projects, up to $500,000 in emergency funds, and up to $25,000 per planning study grant. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. This is a proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $750,000 in CDBG public facility funds. Of the grant funds, up to $35,000 will be retained for administrative and procurement and labor compliance costs, and the remainder will be subgranted to Medvil Cooperative, a 301-unit manufactured housing park located at Donald Drive in Goffstown, toward the cost of sewer, septic, and/or water infrastructure improvements. This project conforms with Goffstown's proposed housing community development plan goal of encourage municipal and private water and wastewater systems that are safe, sanitary, and meet DES regulations.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here, anyone have public comments on what was just read, this part of the grant application? You want to come up, Lynn?
Want me to get up or?
No, you can.
Okay, okay.
Good evening, folks. I have to emphasize here that I'm speaking both as an individual and a resident for now 8 years of the Medvil community, and I just wanted to emphasize to the board the importance of this grant to the future viability of Medvil as a community and as a source of affordable housing for seniors, and I might add unsubsidized affordable housing for seniors. Medvil was built about 40 years ago. Shall we say that plumbing, building codes, and things like that weren't what they are now 40 years ago, and Medville had a number of problems with both sewer and water infrastructure over the years. When I was on the board a couple of years back, we had a project that we studied. Basically, it's a $10 or $11 million project to fix the sewer and water infrastructure. There's been multiple leaks. There have been multiple sewer problems. And since we only have 300 homes in the community, I think if you divide 10 or 11 million by 300, you come up with a pretty daunting number, which is why this grant funding is so important to us. We've got long-term plans to fix it. This will cover basically the first phase of it. We may be back in a few years for more funding for the next phase, but again, I just wish to emphasize the benefits, particularly in the current housing situation. We all know the runaway housing prices, the lack of affordable housing, you know, the fact that you have probably some seniors who are trapped in big homes because they can't afford to move anywhere else. Again, I think I would just ask for the town's support in it. This is something that doesn't affect anyone's taxes. I would just emphasize too, Medvil plows its own roads, picks up its own trash, does its own maintenance, and puts no children in the school system, so there is no municipal burden involved also. Well, you know, given all of that, I would just hope that the board would think it would be a prudent decision to pass on this grant.
Len, would you give your name and your address, please, for the record?
Leonard Stewart, 42 River Ledge Drive, and that is in the Medvil development.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else comments? Okay, hearing none, I will close that portion of the public hearing. Okay, and I will open the public hearing on the residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the proposed infrastructure improvements at Medvil Cooperative Project.
This plan outlines measures under the Uniform Relocation Act required for CDBG projects that involve any displacement or relocation of persons or businesses. If the town were to undertake a CDBG project which involved displacement or relocation, they would follow this plan. The plan outlines the measures they would take to find comparable suitable housing for persons or businesses displaced or relocated. This project does not anticipate displacement or relocation, as the improvements are for water, septic, sewer infrastructure in the park. This is a required plan that has to be adopted every time you ask for CDBG funds, even though it's not applicable to our project, and you have adopted it in the past when you've asked for CDBG funds.
Okay. Anyone want to make a comment? Any comments?
I have a question, Joe. So you're stating that if someone were to become relocated, then the town would be responsible for placing them someplace else? Is that my understanding?
If we were doing a different kind of project, say we're rehabbing a building and those people were being displaced for a little bit while we fix their apartments, then we'd have to build into the CDBG budget a budget for moving them around and it not costing them anything. So if we use a CDBG funds for a project, we have to follow the Uniform Relocation Act. This is water, sewer, not displacing or relocating anybody. But on a different project, it might matter, but it doesn't.
So if there's a major failure in the sewer or the water line, what happens then?
Well, we have insurance and stuff like that we pull in. If while we're doing it, it'd have to be the contractor hit something, and we'd either figure it out and make do, or we'd bring in water lines or bring in bottled water or something like that. I mean, I've been doing these for 40 years. We've never had anybody move out because we broke something. And we break things, you know. We tend to break things.
But the project has to undertake that, not the town.
Right. The town is the one who's getting the grant, but it would come out of the grant or the project.
Okay, that's it, then I will close that section of the public hearing. And I will open the last one, the public hearing on the proposed updated housing and community development plan.
So the last time you had a housing and community development plan was quite a while ago, so it's probably the same goals though. A housing and community development plan is required to be eligible to apply for CDBG funds. The proposed housing and community development plan identifies needs which currently exist or are anticipated during the next 3 years. The plan provides a basis for guiding the town's housing and community development objectives and actions. In addition, the proposed plan includes a CDBG citizen participation plan that details the CDBG requirements for public hearings. So these are the goals that are in the proposed plan. Encourage a varied stocks of safe, sanitary, decent, and affordable housing for persons of all age and income groups. Encourage economic development activities to increase quality industrial and commercial development. Encourage the expansion and retention of employment opportunities for residents. Encourage municipal and private water and wastewater systems that are safe, sanitary, and meet DES regulations. Preserve and promote the town's historically and culturally significant structures. Promote activities that protect the health and safety of the residents and visitors. Promote adequate health, social services, recreational, and social interaction services and opportunities for residents and visitors. So you need a housing and community development plan to apply for CDBG funds, and you haven't had one that I know of for quite a while. I think, what was the date we had on the last one was?
2007 or 2008?
Yeah, which was probably almost identical to this proposed one, except for CDFA has come out with a template which now includes the citizen participation plan, which talks about how we have a public hearing before we apply, and if we get funded, we have a public hearing during the project to update the public on the progress.
Okay, would anyone here to testify on this portion of the grant project? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I will close the public hearing.
Before you leave, I'd like to ask one more question. Yeah, last time you were here, you mentioned a loan as well.
DES.
Yeah, how does that work in conjunction with the grant?
Well, the project is a couple $1 million plus, so.
Correct.
CDBG is part of the grant, and then DES is, I think is it $1.6 million loan
And $400,000 grant.
$400,000 grant. So they all are part of the project cost.
Who's taking out the loan?
The park.
The park is taking out the loan. And there's no backing of us based upon this grant, so no responsibility of the town in any shape or form on the loan?
No, the loan is between them and DES. Problem with CDBG is they can't apply for CDBG. They can go straight to DES and do it right. It's
Okay.
just the two of them, but unfortunately you have to go through the town for CDBG, but this is just a grant.
And the grant's just a portion of the overall project. What happens if you don't get the other grant and the other loan?
Then everything gets put on hold and we do it again later.
So you won't be able to do anything, even with the $750K of the
No,
grant?
because it's not enough to do, it would be deemed insufficient funding.
When would we know about
But they
that?
already have preliminary.
We've been approved, we've been approved for, by Groundwater Trust Fund. They're doing all the financial piece of it right now. We've already been approved. It does need final approval by
Final
the
approval.
Governor and Executive Council, which is basically all of DES's has to go through them. So what happens is that they're finishing their financial review of our community, and when they finish that, then they'll take it to the Governor's Council. My expectation is that it's going to be in August, I think August 11th is when they meet. So the Groundwater Trust Fund has approved it already. So the funds are there, they just need to.
They don't have the final approval, they have the pre-approval already. So, I mean, oftentimes we go in and we don't even have that. They're pretty far advanced here with what they've done.
Sir, since you've basically testified, would you just give us your name and your address,
Sorry.
please? It's okay for the record.
It's Kim Capon, and I live at 15 Country Way in Goffstown at Medvil Cooperative.
Thank you. Okay. If you so desire, we can take this up in 3 votes. Anyone wants to make a motion on the first part?
Make a motion to selectmen, why is that saying selectmen vote to approve? Odd. Okay, vote to approve the submittal of the Medvil Co-op Infrastructure Improvement CDBG application and vote to authorize the town administrator to sign and submit the CDBG application, and upon approval of the CDBG application, authorize the town administrator to execute any documents which may be necessary to effectuate the CDBG contract and any amendments thereto.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Allison, second by Josh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Second motion?
Selectmen vote to adopt the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the Medvil Co-op Infrastructure Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion by Allison, second by Josh. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And lastly,
Selectmen vote to adopt the updated housing and community development plan.
Second.
okay, motion by Allison, second by Josh. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay.
Thank you.
Is it possible to get an update when you guys do finalize to let us know that you're all
Yes.
approved?
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I guess now we can do the department heads.
Okay.
We got time.
By myself.
Here, Danielle.
How are you?
I'm just taking notes, I'm just a moment.
Nope.
Sorry, throwing it
Just
back.
throw her phone.
Okay, you want to follow it the way it is in the packet?
Sure. So the first page, on page 1 of your packet, at tab 4, we've just got a summary of the general fund revenues through Q2. Good news is motor vehicle fees are on track, so those are looking very good. We are lagging a little bit on interest on investments, but we'll see a little bit of a bump here now that property taxes have come in. Treasurer does a very good job about moving those over into some of our higher interest accounts. Similar to Q1, building, zoning, planning, revenues are considerably down. We've seen a lot fewer applications for site plan, for subdivisions, and our building permit applications are way down. So I think that's closer to 25% of what we budgeted for. And then the only other notable thing that finance is working with Adam on solid waste revenue. As you'll recall, there was a $3.50 per ton surcharge on all solid waste taken to landfills, and DES just opened the portal to start seeking reimbursement for that. So Zach and Adam have been communicating on that to submit that.
Do we know about how much that'll be?
I think we had about
20,000.
30,000.
I think we budgeted 21,000, but it's on actual tonnage that's taken there. So we'll probably have a better idea as we approach budgeting season.
So just for clarity, all the zoning changes that we've been seeing from the state have not increased the number of houses that we're getting built?
It just, we're just seeing some fewer applications. Those are going to pick up. Acorn Drive, they have basically put that road in, and we expect they're going to start pulling permits near the end of the year, but mostly in 2027 for that. That was 46 units, so.
And we got a few others that are in flight, but no new requests. I haven't really seen a lot come through planning board either.
Correct. Yep.
So mainly because of interest rates, we think, or just in general?
Potentially, yeah. So that's the revenues. On the expenditures, if you'd like, we can kind of go department by department.
Sure.
Everything's looking good in town hall and admin. We currently have 2 vacant positions, but we've been advertising both positions for 2 weeks. So we're going to be setting up interviews at the beginning of next week with the hopes of bringing a candidate forward at your next meeting for those 2 positions. We have been, one of the changes that we did do this year is in the past, if somebody worked overtime, we would reclassify that and put it back into the full-time wages line. We've actually left that in the overtime line so that we can actually see what the effect of, we've had 3 or 4 short-term disabilities. We've had quite a few surgeries in town hall this year, so a lot of people are pulling some extra hours to get the necessary tasks done. As you'll see, admin legal services, we're almost 100% expended at this point, but we are well under in both planning and zoning and assessing. So what we budget for legal throughout town hall, we're doing very good. And then facility lines, we're going to be probably a little bit high this year. Specifically, we've got some unplanned maintenance projects. We have some soffit repairs that need to be done on the front half. And then the HVAC for that serves our server room, we're gonna need some significant repairs there, so we're pricing those out right now, and we'll be moving forward with those.
So we don't have estimates or ballparks?
Not yet, no, we haven't completed getting all the estimates, so. So that's pretty much nothing really noteworthy for town hall at this point. And then on the insurance side, when you did the default reallocation, we put it back to your original request. As you may recall, the budget committee cut funds out of that, so we did not return it to that proposed amount. We project there's going to be about $175,000 underspend in that line that you could, and that's mostly due to turnover or people changing plans. Now, it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen because seems like we're having a lot of babies in different departments and people moving from, a two-person plan to a family plan. But we'll see how quarter 3 and quarter 4 progress, but we feel pretty confident that you're going to have that underspend this year.
How much did they cut that by before? I can't remember.
It was about that. It was about that much. I think it was
they cut it by
like
more than
200,000 or
Yeah, I think it was
250.
275.
Yeah.
275 they cut it by?
I believe so. I have to double check the exact number.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know how far off we were from that.
And with this projection, we did encompass anything that we know as far as anybody that's come forward talking about changes for later in the year, as well as projections for anybody that is turning 26. But of course, we're doing our best on the assumptions onto which plans they're going to take.
Okay.
Okay, police is next.
Great. Well, my agency is one of the agencies having 4 babies this year. Luckily, we're moving along. Yeah, we're doing all right. Our budget's looking decent right now, but usually that's how it works the first 2 quarters. As July comes around, the pay increases go for the union, so we start to see that change, the overtime changes. The big things that I'd like to point out, I put in the packet, we lost, obviously, at the beginning of this year, 35-year veteran Kevin LaRoche, who stayed on part-time to help us with some transitioning. Currently, staffing-wise, we're down 1 patrol, who you guys just heard that resigned and went to a different police department. We have 1 in the academy right now. 1 is in background. We're hiring them next week to fill that position, so we're down 2 operational. We have 1 that's due to retire this year and 2 next year that are going to retire. So we're going to continue that recruitment and try to retain dispatch. Well, we had 1 in background that we're looking to potentially give a conditional or a final offer. We have 1 in training right now that's in the military, so that's kind of slowing things down. But overall, he's doing pretty well. And then we have 1 that's we have 1 that's leaving. He's leaving, getting out of law enforcement, dispatching all together, and switching careers. So we're going to be down 2 operational, maybe potentially 3 with the other 1 in training. So we're still we're doing all right, but we're still chugging a little bit behind. It's just an ebb and flow. As my partner here in the first responder land, we continue to try to get people to apply. It's a difficult situation, but we've had a couple interviews this last week, so we're looking pretty good. Overall, overtime is tracking where we think for patrol and dispatch. We're a little bit under, but I suspect that now with this new opening in dispatch, we're going to see that go up a little bit. Travel expenses, I put same status as last quarter because again, we had budgeted for 4 of us to go to Omaha for our hearing, which is coming up in 2 weeks. Based on the fact that we're in default, we've changed that to just the accreditation manager and myself are going to go. So that's probably going to track over slightly. The legal services, and that's tracking over. That's due to personnel issues that you guys are aware of, non-public. And our bullet-resistant vest line, as I mentioned in our budget presentation, we needed to buy at least 12. We got cut on that due to default, and we still have to provide 12 vests to our, not to mention anybody else that we hire that's new, we still have to buy those vests and outfit them because they're made specifically for those officers. So you'll see that track over. And then in communications, our consulting services do a sensitive personnel issue that you're all aware of. That's really where we're at for quarter two.
How much for the vest again, chief?
There are roughly about $1,500.
Times 12?
Yes. And I think we're at 80, I'd have to pull it, I'm somewhere right here. It is, we were at 8,500 this year, and we're already at 13,000 spent.
So you need another,
We're potentially, so that would have outfitted the 5 that needed it that are currently working. The other ones that we needed the new officers that we hired at the beginning of the year, and potentially the 2 more that are coming in here if we hire, so we're gonna track pretty.
you already bought some or you need to buy them?
So when I budgeted for it last year, coming this year,
Yeah.
we had to buy at least 5 for
Yeah.
the 5 officers that were here, and then we anticipated 5 transitioning, so that was just about 10. So yeah, I think we had 12,000 budgeted for, but we only got 80. We only went to default was 8,500. So currently we're at 13,000 expended, and that hits our mark. But I believe with that new person, if we have that person retire this year, we're gonna have to buy another one.
Okay, so you already bought the vest, you're over on that line
Yes.
right now?
Yep. And just so the board is aware, and I believe Danielle can help me with this, but we do get an offsetting revenue from the federal government. They can provide us with, I think it's a 50% match on the vest. So at the end of the year, we'll send that in, and
So we'll figure out where we're at on that.
they'll give us, it doesn't come back to us,
No,
it
no.
goes back to the general fund, but.
It goes back to the general
Yeah,
fund?
it'll be an offsetting revenue to some degree.
Okay,
And that money sometimes dries up, so we've been pretty lucky lately to get it, so if it's there, it's there, if it's not, it's not.
okay. I just didn't know if we need to transfer funds over to you at all.
I think right now we're doing all right.
Okay.
But any other questions for the chief? Okay. Where are we going now? The other chief.
Here. So I sent you a detailed synopsis, but we are tracking in line with the percentage of the year. We are expecting some overages, but we also have some underspends, which we're anticipating. As far as personnel goes, as of today, we have 1 vacancy. We went through our eligibility list, so we have oral boards coming up for applications on the 17th. We are confident that we will be able to fill that spot. We also anticipate another person leaving here before the end of the year, so we'll have at least 2 eligible that we're looking at, so we think we're going to be able to fill those spots rather quickly. However, that still leaves us with a lot of our personnel in probation or within the first 2 years, so we have a very inexperienced department spread out through the 2 stations. So we're going to continue to work with that. Our call wages are a little bit over. Luckily, our call members have been coming in for some shifts, getting some training, so that's great to see. Unfortunately, we're down to 7, actually now 6, as I received the resignation today. Again, so other stuff is overtime pay. We anticipate some savings in this line. Professional dues, because of the costs that also, we've talked about this before, but our regional hazmat team, those costs have not increased, I want to say, in 15 to 20 years. So those costs are now going up, and other departments are leaving the region, which then decreases the amount of people paying into it, and the costs are still what they are. So that means the cost for each town staying in it is going up. So that's going to be a significant overage this year. We're continuing to do that. Within that line, there's other expenses for Hillsborough County Fire Wardens and Board Area Mutual Aid. So we've dropped out of both of those agencies to try to save some money there. Foam expenses, luckily we had a wet spring. That was great. So we didn't have a lot of wildland fires for us to use foam. So we have not expended any money out of that line to date. But we'll see what the fall goes, because the summer's already starting to get a little dry now. Facility repairs, we have multiple projects going on there. It's really just which is the worst problem right now for us to deal with. So we have Station 1 roof leak, drain leak. We have a broken spigot at Station 2, which we actually have to get into the wall infrastructure to replace. The windows over at Station 2 are 20 years old, and they are holding them up when they're trying to just use ventilation. They're trying to, the windows don't stay up, a lot of them don't stay up anymore, so they're using books or bricks or something like that to hold them up. Unfortunately, that does fall, and that caused some of the windows, one of the windows to actually break the glass this year, so I had to replace that. So hopefully I'm going to be able to replace some of those if we have funds available in our facility repairs, but it's as well as the security system upgrades at Station 3 like we had talked about. So I don't have enough money to cover all of those repairs. It's literally going to be which one is the worst one to get done, and a lot of that same is with the hose and other equipment is we're going to wait towards the end of the year and figure out which is the biggest priority. Emergency management wise, I'm very happy to report that CERT is back. They are gaining steam. They are bringing people back that haven't participated in a few years, trying to get some new blood in there. They have helped out Rick over the Goffstown Gallop. They're participating in the Glen Lake Swim, and they fully anticipate to be prepared to help out with other community projects such as the regatta and stuff like that. So we've been spending some money to move their equipment from Station 3 down to Station 1, so we have better equipment availability for them, quicker response time for them to help out the first responders in rehabs. And then also we are trying to bring everyone together so that we don't have to maintain equipment separately. So for example, they supply first aid tents at races and stuff like that. Previously, they bought all of their first aid equipment themselves and only use it 2 or 3 times a year. Now, them being here in our station, they have access to our EMS supplies that we use on a regular basis. So now you don't have 2 agencies buying stuff and using it and possibly expiring. Now we actually have a revolving, so they're able to use that as well. We're also restructuring them completely with all new policies and procedures, which is going really well. They've made some, recently, last week, they made some administrative changes to personnel to get some new blood in the ranks and in leadership. They are full steam ahead. I'm really proud to say that our volunteers are doing well, and if anyone else out in the community is looking for some volunteer opportunities, CERT is definitely looking, as well as we're still taking applications for call firefighters too, which I think covers
Jason's
Can you explain again what CERT is?
So CERT are volunteers. CERT, it's kind of this interesting niche, if you will, within the state laws and stuff like that. They are under emergency management. So locally, the emergency management director, myself, they fall under me. They previously were under the police department. And what they do is they assist in a non-emergency role the town. So our CERT currently assists with pedestrian crossing, traffic control, first aid tents, stuff like that. We're starting to build them into some school plans for reunification plans, and also use for disasters such as wind events, rain events, whether it's closing down roads, putting up barricades, stuff like that. That kind of, we refer to it as the cold zone, keeping them out of the real big hazards. But quite honestly, it's really neat to see the different experience. These are mainly all retired people, and utilizing their different professional experiences to help write grant narratives, to help write SOG policies and procedures, or provide some experience in certain areas is really neat to have that expertise. So not only operationally, but also administratively, they're really helping us out a lot.
Thanks.
Chief, on the facility repairs,
Yes.
do you have a prioritized list already?
So I have a list, I have how much each one is going to cost, and I have an idea of priorities. The security system, in my opinion, is number one. Number two is the windows, but I don't have enough money to cover that. And again, it all depends on what else breaks for the rest of the year.
But we have a leaking roof in Station 1.
It's a small leak, yep.
So are we worried that that's going to cause more damage as more water gets into the...
So very valid question. It appears that it's been going on for a couple of years. It is a industrial style roof and leaks into a bathroom. So luckily that's not a significant problem. It's not causing any areas of concern for mildew or mold at this time.
My concern would be water spreads and moves
Yep.
everywhere.
Yes, it does.
So,
And right now it's contained, and if it spreads, it's going to jump up on their priority list. Yep.
so I mean, I just want to make sure we're not being like penny wise, pound foolish.
Completely agree
Not
with you.
taking care of certain things.
Yep.
So can we get some idea on some of those and a list around them, so that way we can
Sure, I can send
understand
you
if
a
we
list
should be
of
going after
what
some?
we're working on.
I mean, I also don't want people getting hurt because like windows are slamming down or whatever too, because they're trying to stay cool.
Well, I mean, it's along with that hurt track, we've talked about on GLSMC, one of the big ones is the traffic light out here for us responding from Station 1 hasn't been working in 2 years. And it's gonna be $50,000 or $60,000 to replace, and it just, priority-wise, it just hasn't made it to a requirement yet. Because the whole system needs to get replaced. So there's multiple different things, it's just,
I think if we had a list, then we could start to think about, especially if there were funds left over, you know, from the benefit line or what. Otherwise, we want to make sure that we rack and stack all of those. And I think it's from like all the departments. Like if there's certain things that we're thinking about safety or health of the employees, or like making sure the buildings are actually functioning, we should get that list.
Chief, what light were you talking about?
the traffic light right here at Main Street,
Right
Church
here.
and Main.
Okay.
That's all I got.
That's it. Any other questions? Okay, Adam.
So for DPW, this is the time of year where we start to dip into our encumbrances. I know in Q1, our budget artificially looks like it's expended because we've encumbered so much money for the year, primarily for things like the solid waste tipping fees, you know, the asphalt paving contracts, another big one, some of the other lines that tend to have a higher amount, some of our contracted services. So we're starting to dip into those now and actually spend the funds from the encumbrances. In particular, street sweeping contractor is complete with the spring sweeping. We've started line striping, a little slow out of the gate with this contractor. As you might remember, it's their first year with us, so might have some growing pains there, but hopefully they can get on track. Let's see, catch basin cleaning and pipe cleaning contractor started a couple weeks back. As Derek mentioned, we've had a little bit of additional tonnage for the solid waste revenues. Overall, some of our numbers are down, but the revenue reimbursement should be submitted here by the end of the month, so we'll get that check soon. The other items of note, road plan wise, Mass Road Phase 3 overlay was complete. We do have some punch list items over there on Mass Road. And then Ivy Wall and Heald were paved last week. The next step for that project would be raising the drainage structures to grade. And when that contractor for Continental is here raising those structures, they'll raise the structures next door on Laurel Ave, which was Laurel Way, which paved last year, and then that can be topped, the top coat, to finish that project. So that hopefully is coming to a close there on Laurel. And then of course the Henry Bridge project is kicked off in full swing with school shut down. So that's taken a good chunk of our department focus right now. That project going well so far. We had some some challenges getting out of the gate with what method of demo was best for that old decking. A lot of it being sight unseen because the pavement had to be removed first. We weren't sure exactly how well the tack welds that hold down that corrugated steel deck were going to maintain and how much effort was going to be required to remove that. Turns out a few of them are hanging in there pretty well and quite a bit of effort. So we've got a good method now. I think after about another week I should be able to project out, okay, here's how much productivity we are going to get per day with our demo crew, and then with the refinishing, grinding, painting, and replacement welding following behind. So we're working across the deck, replacing new panels, keeping only a 6 to 8 foot gap in between what's being removed with what's being replaced. So far we've been able to keep up pretty well, but I think the tricky sections are the ones that have had the most penetration throughout the years, water damage underneath, and those require a little bit more welding and painting, or I'm sorry, grinding and painting. And we do have a couple sections that from below we know are going to be rough. It's just we're not sure until the deck's off how bad the tops of those beams are going to be. So far we haven't had anything that requires any significant structural buildup required. There are 2 beams near the ends that the tops were getting a little thin, so the welder's been getting those filled as he proceeds with the deck tacking, but no significant structural issues at all, so that's good. The trick now is to make sure that we stay on track and try to get this reopened for school, of course. As I talked to Joshua the other day, right now I don't have a anticipated push for overtime, but if we get through the end of this week now where we've got the process for demolition and replacement known, if we hit any major stumbling blocks we might have to start looking at overtime, either get a crew in on a Monday where they normally wouldn't, or a couple long days. So as far as quantity, it's hard to say yet because we're not in that phase where I think we need it, but if we do, it's likely to be in the the days of overtime rather than the weeks and months. It's not going to spiral out of control unless there's a catastrophic issue, but all indications are it's going as we expected as far as the condition. Let's see, budget-wise, other things, same as Q1, where we came out of Q1 expending so much of the winter related lines. Those haven't obviously gotten any better with Q2. So for overtime, diesel use and salt use in particular, that's going to be right up until the 11th hour of the year before we really know how a winter of 26, 27 is going to start. Some years you have a December where it's golf until January 1st, and others winter starts October 31st, as we know. So we've got some funds set aside within the road plan for future transfer, presuming we have a typical year. It's about 20% of our winter maintenance budget is usually spent in December, but as I said, it fluctuates so much one year to the next, it's hard to say. But we'll continue to monitor that. The other big thing that we will know soon, though, is the state's salt pricing. So their contract expires in August. Not too many people are buying salt in the middle of the summer, but the new contract pricing is usually made live sometime in July. As of Friday, it hadn't been put live yet, but I expect that'll happen in the next week or two. If there are no major jumps there, we'll be in good shape. A couple years ago, I think it jumped $10, which was at the time 15% or so increase. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that, and I'll let you know. We do have a full shed. We do have a little bit of money left on the encumbrance. So in a good, easy December, that would get us through. Let's see. Other big stuff of note. I did make a note on bridge repair operating supplies. We're going to, Finance Director Zach and I had talked about, my initial plan had been to use just our road plan funding to fund the bridge project, and then worry about the transfers later. He actually thinks it's going to be easier on his end to overspend the bridge maintenance line and the operating supplies line, and then at the end of the year do a transfer into those two. It'll require coding it only once when we put the invoices in, so those are going to start to look a little funky here for the next few weeks, and then once we get the transfers in at the end of the season.
How much more do we think we're going to go over on that, Adam? Because you're already at 170%.
Yeah, so bridge repair, the number I think I had in carve out was about 60,000 total. And that is, that covers the anticipated welding, some of the rental machinery, fall protection supplies that have been purchased, you know, other, the security fencing, that kind of stuff. And then the other big one that we have coming up is the waterproofing membrane. So once the decking is complete, a skim coat of asphalt goes down to fill in all the corrugations on the deck and get a nice smooth surface. And then there's a contractor that comes in to do a waterproofing barrier membrane, which will hopefully do a better job protecting the steel decking. And then that gets paved on top of.
So what line were we saying we're
So-
going to transfer out of?
So it's going to be out of reclamation primarily, I think is going to be the.
So it's on
So-
page
I'm sorry, yep.
25, is the packet page 25 or page 19 of the budget report? It's in CIP. Where a reclaim line is.
And then,
Page 19, you said there.
It's page 19 of the report,
Yeah, page 25.
page 25 of the packet.
and then we also have, as I mentioned in the memo, the HB2 a few years back, the state had new legislation as part of the budget bill, I guess it was, right, a tack on, that funded additional, that sent additional bridge aid funds to towns. There was also, I'm going to get it wrong, so I won't even try, but another bill that tacked on road funding. So we had an influx of road funding and this specific bridge funding that can only be used for bridge projects. We used that a couple of years ago to purchase all the steel decking at the time, 75,000-ish, I think, for materials. So we do have a good, healthy amount left in that line, which is a non-lapsing fund, this HB2 fund. I would like to not dip into that if we can, because we have a big deck that's going to have to get, a bridge that's going to have to be replaced. It's on the red list, newly on the red list on Tyrrell Hill Road, just past the fire station. So we'd like to use what's remaining there and hopefully not hit the budget for that project if we can.
So if we take it out of the reclaim, which you're almost at 80% there, no more that we're expecting on reclaim, or?
So we've got some encumbered funds in reclaim, which brings that 80%, is a good chunk of that 80% of spent. And then the other thing that we have this year is the additional road funding, special article line. I don't know if that's on page 20 or...
Well, I'm just trying to make sure that
Yes.
if we move money, that we understand how much more is going to be hitting the reclaim as well, so that way
Correct.
we take the right amount out of there. So how much more do you think is
Yeah.
going to be hitting that's not the bridge work?
So I had held out, so that 186 that we have available
Yeah,
includes things like this bridge project, which I target around 60,000.
which you roughly need another $43,000 based?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
And then we've got those other items, those winter items that I'm anticipating we're going to need. So
How much are those?
that's what I don't know
You
until.
don't have a guesstimate on it, or?
I mean, if it's an average year, it's the 20%, right, that we would need from our overtime, salt, and then diesel line. So
You're saying you need some salt because,
right. So I won't know what that real number. I kind of have to hold it back through the construction season, and it's just going to end up being a surplus if we don't have a heavy November, December. If we do, then we'll have it, and if we don't, then you folks will be able to put that back to the general fund or do some other end of the year type stuff with. But yeah, it's just kind of the way it goes with those winter items. I don't have any crystal ball with it.
because on Henry Bridge Road, what I was going to ask is, given the fire we had the other day, how can we actually expedite moving the bridge along?
At this point, I think we're probably welder limited if we wanted to look at hiring another welding firm or additional, welders. The welder we have is good. He's done a lot of bridge work, very certified. He's a one-man, his business is one man.
So we're basically held up by the welding at this point in time.
I think so. We've got our crew is now operating with a plasma torch side by side with the welder for the demo. We've only done this for a couple days now since that came in, so I'll know better at the end of next week if that's if you'd like to do some kind of provisional thing and have me start looking at having somebody else come in. I just, with that, two companies, you start to have a little bit of potentially stepping on
One on
toes.
one side of the bridge, the other one on the other.
Potentially, right? Yeah, have one demo and the other works on the reinstallation. We've got some of the other limiting factors are the concrete work, not the first abutment in, but the last. We can't demo the south side abutment until the bridge deck demo continues to that point. So they're going to be under the gun when that time comes to get the concrete in, and we have accelerated that. We've got a high early strength concrete spec, so we can get in, hopefully get that traversable pretty quickly. And then the other lead time is going to be weather. With the paving contractor has to come at least twice, once for that skim coat, and then the membrane contractor is going to have to follow right behind, and then the next window for top paving. So there's a little bit of,
Do we have all the supplies, I guess is the question.
we are good with supplies.
So really it's down to personnel power in order to get it done.
Right.
And
So-
right now, you're limited based upon not having enough people to do the demo, or to pull the metal up.
It's tough because I can't answer that really. I don't have enough, we've only done this once. I don't have enough history to say, hey, this last couple days, since we've had 2 torches going at once for the demo, is enough. It looks like that's exactly the right amount of labor on the demolition end to keep the construction end following closely behind. So, give me another week, I can give you a better answer on that, but at this point, I don't think there's not a whole lot to gain. I think if we were to crash it with, another 2 or 3 welders, I think they'd be more in each other's way than helping at this point.
So Derek, do we need to transfer some over in order to make it easier for counting, or is that what I'm hearing, or?
Not at this point. We have a new bridge line that we've never had before, and they can start charging invoices to it. The one thing, and I know Danielle and Adam are well aware of this, we just can't transfer from the special article into that, so it'll have to be out of the CIP reclaim. But
So it has to be out of that, for sure.
yeah, you can never transfer out of a special
That's
article.
what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure this just makes it easier to kind of make that distinction between regular road plan and bridge repair.
So if there is any reclaim, we should be trying to pull out of that special article?
No.
For the road work?
Oh, you mean if there's road work?
Yes.
Spend that down first, yeah.
I think we should be pouncing on that first, right? So that way we
Well,
can.
he's already got that full amount encumbered. It
Yep.
looks like he's got it set up in a PO,
Okay.
so,
Yep.
yep.
So we shouldn't expect this line of 187 to really go down anymore. I want to make sure of
Right,
that
right.
because,
Yeah, we will have money, we have the money we need right now. So I just can't take on any, late season, hey, we gotta add a road or, something like that. If salt pricing comes in, it's 20 bucks a ton higher, I may shift gears and take some bridge funds from that HB2 account, but I don't think that's
how
gonna.
much is in that HB2 account?
I think it's around 100.
It's not a account we use now.
I know,
have to
I think
look
it's
up
about
the balance.
130,000, but I'm not positive of that.
Sorry, two-factor.
We're trying to sign up.
It's okay. Both chiefs, you've had some emergency services lately. Is that bridge being out causing any problems besides the fire that we had the other day? I just want to make sure if we should be pushing on that a little bit harder.
You've got more experience here than I do, but infrastructure, if people in the community are hurt by changes in the infrastructure, like Henry Bridge, we use the same infrastructure.
Yeah.
That answer your question? So if you're seeing a problem, we're seeing a problem.
Yeah, we have to redo our entire patrol division where we have to put officers on the other side of town and split our town in a different way than we're normal to make sure that we have the adequate coverage over there, because we can't just cross over Henry Bridge and we need extra officers. Yeah, and we've had a couple of spots where we've had to have some overtime because people had to stay on that side of town where we do a shift change to get them over due to a late call, which could happen, but it's just taking us longer to get back.
Yeah.
I will say that in the past, they've been very good when they've had to replace that they open it at night or leave it just for emergency responders to get across, but this is the one that
You can't really
it
open
broke.
it up.
It broke completely. It's like, yeah, unless we're Dukes of Hazzard, but yeah, it is affecting us.
They shorten the lifespan of our cars.
We pre-positioned it knowing that this was coming, but, you know, I can tell you right now that that's because we have adequate staffing at the police department. If we didn't have adequate staffing, we would be in a different situation.
Yeah. So I think, Adam, at least for me, I would like to make a motion to have you investigate how we move it faster.
How, what type of options do you want me to look at? I mean,
Adding a second welder.
we can certainly, you know, I can pull the switch tomorrow and say, anybody that wants overtime, we've got it. It's just a matter of how many, you know, takers we have on that end.
Because demo is currently our shortest straw in it, correct?
It looks that way, but
So if we can move the demo faster, we can move the reconstruction faster.
potentially. But again, I don't have enough data to say that right now.
He's not far enough into the project to see
You know,
where
I think we're,
In our next,
Not doing it on a regular basis.
but how much more do you think you have in time to do the demo?
I suspect we've got another week and a half of demo. But at that same time, it's overlapping with, you know, the cleanup, the construction that's following behind,
So
so.
that gets us to our next meeting. So, I mean, waiting that long doesn't necessarily accelerate us for that if you only have a week and a half.
Right.
Instead, we're waiting to see if we're
I
gonna
mean,
fall
all I
behind.
need to know from you folks is if you're okay with me, if we find a lever to pull, I'll pull it. You know, I don't want to do that and then hear, you know, the tough parts, the purchasing and all that jazz, you know, right, because I'm not going to be able to go out to bid.
But I didn't hear anything about purchasing. What I heard was is hiring, right?
Right, but if I'm going to hire a welder, that falls in the purchasing policy, so I would normally have to,
The purchasing policy, keep me honest here, is anything above, is it 25?
25 is sealed bid.
Lot is sealed bid, but anything between 10,000 and 25,000 is.
So if it's below 10,000, you don't necessarily need it. So I'll make a motion for you to investigate anything that falls below the 10,000 line in order to accelerate the bridge.
second.
Motion by Josh, second by Mark. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it.
And those grant funds, SB 401.
Oh, sorry, 401 is the bridge.
We've got $280,000 in that, in those grant funds.
And that's 401 plus 2 combined, or is that just?
That's just 401.
Okay.
There's,
The bridge is separate, and then there's the 270
the bridge, the 270 bridge cap, there's another $100,000 in there. It's 380,000 total between those two,
for bridges.
the bridges.
Yeah, and I think, Adam, where I'm thinking is like get ahead of the week and a half, like,
Yeah, I mean, easy to say. It's
Yeah,
hard
I
to
know.
find
It's the
somebody
mythical person month. I got it, but-
Construction season, trying to find somebody that's worth a dang and knows what they're doing on a bridge that isn't already working somewhere on a bridge, you know. That's gonna be part of it too, but, yeah, we'll do the best. And some of it may be, you know, maybe overtime, if we can put in some OT on our side to get some of the cleanup done. Instead of having the welder fall back behind and weld the pieces, as soon as they're cleaned, we can open up more of the bridge. We have the fall protection stuff, it's just kind of a, you know, a little bit of a balancing act. You don't want to open up too much and have a
I mean,
dangerous
I know it's
leading edge.
impacting local traffic, but I think when I saw the emergency services thing kind of happen the other day, like, I don't want us to get into a bad situation, especially if we're starting to get drier here in the summer, because it has been pretty damn warm. I don't want to, like, have any sort of fires break out anywhere else.
Definitely remember pretty quickly how 2 bridges across a river can cripple you if one of them's down. And just think how we feel when we're on one side of the bridge and then that same truck driver has to go all the way through the village to get to just the other side of the bridge. For sure.
Can I just change the subject?
Sure.
Your first paragraph, it kind of struck me, second to the last line, the road plan has been deliberately under-programmed. And I was just
Yes.
wondering how you Under program, the road plan.
That's just some of those holdbacks. So, I didn't spend right to the very hill, knowing that we had some of these items coming out of Q1 that were going to be
So
on the winter end.
does that mean you're not working on certain roads? Or-
Everything on the road everything that was approved by the select board for the road plan, yes, done. The road plan funding, though, we only programmed for your approval, whatever it would be, 85% or something of the available funds, holding back some of those other funds.
Thank you.
Yep.
And one more question. And it's kind of an off-topic question.
Love it.
Good. So on the road that we've been redoing on Mass Road,
Yes.
I know that the granite costs quite a bit, and you can tell me that we're required by law to have it, but I'm just curious, over where the Valvoline is,
Yep.
and you're coming out of there, there's those two granite bump outs on both sides.
Yep.
Are we required to put those in?
No.
So why did we put them in?
So those are, let me just make sure we're talking the same thing. The traversable cobbles like we have here on Main Street.
Yep.
Yep, okay. So those are mountable or traversable cobbles that the idea there is they're used for traffic calming and or turning movement calming, and in particular with pedestrian safety areas. So what those do is deter most people from taking a very hard right or left turn into an intersection, but you don't actually give up the physical geometry of the vertical curb on both sides. So you're getting like the 90% solution. You're slowing a lot of people down and reducing the speed at which people take those turns, so pedestrians stand more of a fighting chance. You also retain that extra yardage for big truck movements, turning movements, so they can be driven over. In a couple places on Main Street, we had them that we actually replaced vertical curbing with those on the leading edge of some of the parking bays because it was a tricky movement for folks. So, and then Elm and High intersection is another good example where we have some. In general, it's supposed to keep most everybody within the actual travel lane, but it's there. If bigger vehicles need to, they can go right over it. So they are supposed to be a visual wowzer. That's kind of the idea with them. I will say initially when they first go into a location, it's pretty common. We get a lot of like, what's going on? I can't whip into, no offense to any Rochambeau residents, I can't whip into Rochambeau anymore. That intersection in particular
I
is
don't use that intersection.
That's a good man.
I go up a little further.
That intersection in particular, one of the things that we looked at with highway safety prior to the development of this project was it's a very odd geometry. It's skewed. Both sides, both College and Rochambeau, are skewed at an angle to mast. And it was so wide on Rochambeau that even though there's not room or a desire to create two lanes coming out of Rochambeau, because of all the turning movements that have to happen there, you start adding multiple lanes coming out of Rochambeau, and now you're actually causing a safety problem because you've got too many different turns that can all happen at once with center turn lanes and ins and outs and the two plazas and the pizza market. So it was so wide, people would create their own two-way out of Rochambeau where there really wasn't two lanes there. So one of the ideas was, well, if we can do what we've done elsewhere in the village with good success, give it the visual neck down, and this is defined, one in, one out, but still the ability for the larger stuff to get over it. That was kind of the idea there.
Do we owe are we responsible if anybody like runs over theirs, pops a tire or something like that?
Unless there's been a, it's kind of the liability, municipal liability, unless there's a gross negligence or, it wasn't on the plan and we put vertical curb somewhere and somebody hits it. Yes, there's some liability if we don't follow what the plans are, I guess. But no, the municipal liability protection is very broad, especially for something that's, improving standards, I guess, of the roadway.
I'm just curious. I mean, you're right, it is kind of annoying when you come out and you first see it, but
yeah, it does slow people right down. There's no more, you can't take that corner at super high speed anymore.
We did that.
We drive over?
We did it on, over by Cumbies too, because they were causing that intersection was pretty nasty as well, but you curved it out with that.
yeah, I just know there's been a lot of discussion about the granite and everything out there, so I figured I'd ask.
So,
since
and
people
just
asking.
to maybe tie the bow on the granite discussion, the curbing in Pinardville almost completely already was granite curbing. So
Yeah.
in areas that already have it, we normally on a big project like this, we will reset areas that have failed or settled, or in the case of Valvoline, there was the old business had an entrance there, and the actual tip down was still there, so we had that replaced and brought up, to full height. In the village, we had some granite section on Main Street, but it was a hot topic when Elm Street was done because the asphalt curbing on Elm Street was replaced with more asphalt. So there is some of that discussion when we're coming into some place, especially if there's not curbing. Okay, what are we going to do here? And it gets pretty costly if we add curbing that's not already existing, that's for sure. So, but Mass Road in general has granite throughout, so that's what we stick with.
Understood. Thank you.
All set?
I'm good.
Parks and Recs.
Parks and Rec, doing great. Bottom line will be fine. I think some areas that we just have to manage. We're really now just kind of getting into the swing of things. We're like week 3 with camp and all that stuff in the pool. So staffing wise, part-time wise, now we start to see the numbers really, what are they? I think we'll be fine in that area. Might actually be under a little bit. But I'm not going to go on record and say that.
I think you just did.
Yeah, I did, yeah. That was a stupid statement again. Yeah, my wife says that every now and then. You listen to yourself speak, and I'm like, no, I really don't. Anyhow. Other lines, the park operation line, I think that one, it's a 35,000 total. That line could go over a little bit. But as I said, bottom line wise, I think we'll be okay. We encumbered $5,800, which comes out of that line from 2025 for this Roy Park survey. They finally finished that, so actually I got to bring that to you guys at some point. And then we had, as you may or may not be aware, we had the septic that we never knew we had a septic for 40 years. And little things like that. We had a tree down across the rail trail. That's unexpended money. We had the well pump, the high-low switch died, so there was a $800 cost there. Little things like that kind of came in that line. So all in, I think that line might be over a little bit, but we can control that somewhat. Maybe I don't buy one treatment of fertilizer, you know what I mean, something like that. But I think our water line, I'm really nervous. I mean, every field we got right now is burning. So we just literally increased all the watering times and amounts and all that. So I can tell you right now, the sports complex, we rely on the pond water, a well system that's dry. So we're going all into Grassmere water, and that's an expensive one. They hit you hard. So we're going all in there, and that's going to start probably in 2 weeks using municipal water over there.
We have a line down there already, right?
Oh, yeah.
From
Yeah, we dialed in on that. Adam hooked us up, gave us a great idea. We used the pond. We created our own drainage to fill the pond.
There, yeah.
Right? And then we also have municipal water that runs down there too. And this is going to be a year that we're going to be using municipal water because the pond is drying out. And so I think that line, the water line, might be close to expended. But other than that, I don't foresee any of the other.
Was it full off of water, Rick, or not really?
No. I mean, I don't know if you have been over there. Have you ever seen the pond, how it has that concrete thing in the water?
Yeah.
2 years ago, after winter, the water was literally up to that grate on the top.
Yeah.
Okay, this year, we're starting on the second hole down. So that's how much less water we had. It's amazing. So,
yeah, because even over at Crotchet, like their retention pond is like way down. Like,
it's weird.
So dry.
I think that, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's my own theory. The snow we got this year was awesome for skiing. I loved it. It was great. It was good powder, you know what I mean? It was good snow, but not a lot of moisture in it.
No.
And I think what that could be a little difference is when it melts and drains off, you have
Not
less
getting as
water.
much, yeah.
I mean, we got a ton of snow. It was great. It was beautiful for
Just
skiing.
powder.
Yeah, thought we were out west. Didn't have to pay for it. But, so I think, you know, that's a variable, but I'm not a scientist. Other than that, I think we'll be okay.
Do we know how much water in general that we use to,
I can tell you, I mean, I don't have it off the top of my head.
can we do that to calculate how much we think we're going to spend with Grasmere?
Could try.
We can pull some old invoices.
Yeah. There was one year, actually, there was one year, first year or second year, I believe that went online. We were using quite a bit of water from Grasmere.
Because we probably should estimate that in the pro forma, like what we think we're going to spend on that. To
I'll
see
try
if you
and
are under budget, if you're actually going to be over budget on that.
I'll try and figure it out.
Okay.
But I think, like I said, bottom line, I think bottom line will be fine. But I have a feeling there's gonna be some individual lines that'll go over, absolutely.
Okay.
Last but not least,
Short and sweet, I hope. The library's operating very well within our budget at this time. As Chief Serino mentioned, though, it's only the end of the second quarter, so fingers crossed. For us, we're really trying to leverage all of our staff, and we're doing a little experiment. We have a part-time temporary position, we've had it for many years, to help in the summertime because that's our peak programming and building capacity, I would say, time. Instead of hiring somebody in for that position, we are using an existing part-time staff member to take just a fraction of those hours. We really looked at all the programming we're doing, the staffing we're doing, to make our best guess, could we do this? And we think we can. So it remains to be seen at the end of the summer, but if it's a successful experiment, that might be an opportunity in the future as I'm building the budget for next year to reduce it a little bit. The one area of unknown is the facility maintenance line. We have had some unanticipated expenses. We're paying them as we go, but that's an unknown in a 100-year-plus building. But other than that, I think we're looking pretty good. I'm feeling good about it. Excepting the elevator cost.
Have you guys started the elevator work?
No, I did just get an update from Stanley about a week ago, and the part is now trending end of July, beginning of August. So as soon as the part comes in, my understanding is they're gonna be able to work on it immediately, 2 to 3 day project. So it's really just a matter of that part coming in.
So we're waiting on the part.
We're waiting on the part.
Require the 50%, or you've already paid the 50%?
We already, that's already.
Pay the 50%, so you'll be doing the other half, yes,
Can I
Daniel?
jump in on that? So essentially at this point, the general fund is just cash flowing it out of their building maintenance line. So it's gonna be overspent, and then once it's decided where that funding is coming from, we'll either budget transfer to it from something like the benefits line, or we can charge it out to the, with the offsetting CRF if necessary.
Okay, so we make the decision at that point in time?
Yeah.
So right now it's coming out of the general fund,
Yeah, they can still do the work and it won't hold anything up, and then we can make the
and
decision
then we make the
when we see
decision
the
where we're pulling the
numbers.
money from.
Yeah, you actually have that in your packet as tab 8A
Okay.
tonight if you are ready to make that decision.
okay. Everybody good? Okay, if you don't have anything else, anyone who doesn't have anything else, you can leave.
The general election line.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coming up there, right? We're at 40% already, we got one coming up in September.
Yep.
Do we think we're gonna be over on that line?
We'll definitely have to look at it. I'll have to work with Jen and what she's predicting for hours, and we'll have to see where we can pull from.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that we're not thinking like, hey, we're going to go fancy on all kinds of like meals and stuff if we have 2 more elections to do as well. Like, we have to contain that budget in some way, shape, or form as well. Because we got September and then we have to basically get ready for March at the same time.
No, we have September and November.
September and November.
Yeah.
September and
Yeah.
November. So, I mean, it definitely seems like we may end up going over that if we did 40% already.
Yeah, it definitely depends on what we end up for.
Yeah, I think there was a lot spent on learning the new tabulators this year. The ballot testing took a few more days than we anticipated.
It did.
And we've already started talking about ways to make that a little bit more efficient, so.
I did talk to the manufacturer too. He stated that some of the issues that we experienced with tabulators, they'll have the software fixed before the September election. So
Great.
they may end up having to take some people in here too, and basically test out those ahead of time. So that could be more money as well to make sure that it's working as described in the software. And I don't know if Jen's talked to them already on that or not.
I can check with them.
Thank you, everybody.
You want to stick around for the jail?
Yeah, please.
Maybe not an hour.
Not yet.
You can't leave. You can't
Musical
leave yet.
chairs.
I was gonna just hang out on project.
So at tab 8A, what I have is just the memo from the last meeting about the library elevator repair. This was tabled until after quarter discussions, and I guess we're just here to answer questions for the board and see what you want to do.
I've been thinking more about this, and I'd love to see if we could find a way to fund that from, like, probably that excess insurance line. I feel like the town has spoken when they supported putting money into their CRF, and now we're gonna literally drain it within the first, how many months are we? Thanks, because I don't even know anymore. A few months into it, and the whole point was to be able to prove that they had support from the town and money to go after funds, and then we drain it and they no longer do.
You're talking about the 37,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that elevator part. It's either coming from some sort of savings that we have, and we know we have it in the insurance line now, or it's coming in draining their CRF. Because they don't have the money in the operating budget, period.
I mean, if we have the money, I could back that.
So we project you're gonna have a savings in the benefits line of $175,000. For any other department, if we have some type of significant HVAC or fire as a elevator, we've got the ADA lift here. Again, most of those items are out of warranty, they get regular maintenance. But if all of a sudden, if something happens, if it was any other department, we'd be coming here asking for a budget transfer. I think the only reason is this was one of the items, but it was really to completely redo the elevator, not just do a repair.
Right. And honestly, from even what Chief said, we may be getting more of this year. Not just the library. Things are going wrong at the fire station.
I think, if I may, I think that our facilities in general are aging, and that's proving out in what we're seeing in our facility repair lines coming through the invoicing process. And when it comes to something like this, you're talking about the health and welfare of the employees as well as the public, with this being the oldest building that we really have going with public access, and it's a 3-story tall building. You know, the stairs, hoofing it up the stairs is not necessarily realistic or safe in certain situations. So I think that it's definitely a worthy cause, and even though there may be some other overages, I think as far as priority goes, this one's still going to remain a top priority.
I will say I personally tried to take my mother there the other day, and I knew, but I just left her on the first floor. I was like, Stacy, can you just make sure Mom doesn't leave the library so that I could take my kids to a program there? And that kind of stunk. I mean, obviously I already knew I wasn't going to be happy with that, but I feel like there's other people like, she's fine, I'm fine. But there are people that might not be fine because you can't get access to the things that are on the 3rd floor, which is actually kind of more the older, not older people, but it's the more adult books and the computers for them to use up there and all that stuff. And it's like, it's 3 floors up. So if you can't make it up there, you can't go in until, what do we say, August? Mid-August?
Yeah, so
That's
right now
the
it's
whole summer.
completely out of service, right?
Yes.
Completely, yes. And those stairs are tough. I get winded going up them, honestly.
Yeah, I think Patty actually commented that they added chairs, right?
If it's okay, if I just.
Yeah, of course.
I just want to say too that from the public's perspective, for sure, it's been a challenge. There was a gentleman who tried to come in, and he actually was an amputee. He was at crutches, and he came in and he wanted to look for a book. And he did have somebody with him, thankfully. Of course, the staff would also help. So he sat on the first floor in the children's room, and his person went up. It really took away from that ability to just browse for himself. We have a heavily pregnant staff member who works on the 3rd floor. She just started her leave, but she's been walking those stairs. That was tough. Just operationally reshelving materials. The person who does that work has to hand carry all the books and the media and all the things because he can't put the shelving cart in the elevator. It's been really a challenge. Everybody's, doing the best that they can, but it for sure is been a real problem. Our copy machines on the 3rd floor. As Allison mentioned, a lot of people go up there for the quietest space in the building.
There's kids and teenagers on all the other floors. It's like the one that's usually, other than my kids, who love to hang out up there.
And the other part of it too is all the meetings that we hold. We have a library board of trustees twice a month. The Friends meet there once a month. The foundation meets there. The only meeting space that we have is up on the 3rd floor. Some of the members of those meetings themselves, never mind any public people who might want to come in, some of them have struggled. So we've moved pretty much all those meetings here to Town Hall. Town Hall has been fabulous about sharing the space here with us, but that's a lot too. Parks and Rec has opened their facility for some of our programs. So it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of that, so.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
I don't think that there was any discussion about the fact that it needs to be fixed. I think the discussion is about where the money comes from, right?
Yep.
And I think you said it, Allison, like there's a lot of things we may end up hearing and seeing about that. It sounds like it's already coming out of the general fund right now. We just need to make the decision as we get in rack and stack. And I don't think we've seen the rack and stack of any request right now to take that 175.
Correct.
We've only seen one right
Yes.
now.
Right.
Yep.
So, and I think we need to rack and stack that completely and then make the decision. So I personally am not there to make the decision on whether or not it comes out of the general fund yet or not, because if we got a leaking roof and other things, like, I think we should see some of those collectively and then make the decision where we're going to pull that, because we're also going to have to make recommendations on CRF, on the number of CRFs this year, as well as we go into the budget season, to make sure that we're shifting money into the right spots. So, I mean, we can make this on one piece right now, and then you're left with limited funds and not be able to take out of the CRF if you need to at that point in time. That's my personal point of view on it. I mean, if we want to make a motion and vote on it, my personal opinion is I probably would say not yet.
I would ask the department heads to put a list together, have it ready for the next meeting so that we can prioritize and make that list and start to chew away at it. I mean, other than that, it's, oh, he said this, he said that, or he needs this, he needs that. He's got the list all laid out, we've got it all laid out. We can work progressively to try to get the repairs done, you know?
And I would just say it's going to be a list based on the first half of the year. A lot of us don't know some of the things that are coming down the line, or we've started to kind of maybe say no to something, you know, some little things, knowing that we've got some other things. So it may be I guess a starting point of a list, but it's probably not going to be what we end up with at the end of the year. So we're only 6 months in, and really, you're only 3 months of spending in the budget, because the first 3 months, you're getting to town meeting, you're operating under, you know, pretty light anyway, so.
I may think a little different than Josh, but if I look at what we talked about tonight, to me, my priorities would be the library. Get the library fixed first, the hell with the water leak. We'll get the water leak fixed down the road. It seems to be okay now, but right now, a lot of people in town are struggling to get to the third floor or wherever they need to go in the library because the elevator is not working.
And just to be clear, we are moving forward with that repair as quick as we possibly can.
Yeah, I'm not saying like the elevator is not a priority now, I'm just saying where the money comes from is a little bit different.
Yeah, but
Like, it sounds like we're already fixing it, and we should be, but it doesn't sound like we can fix it until we get the part, which is the longest lead time item right now.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of like us paying for it, because we're still paying for it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even sure if we've even started on the water leak. We haven't. So, you know, and I'd say, like, if we have a water leak and it's basically leaking into the roof, you could end up with a much larger repair bill if you don't actually take care of it immediately. So, that,
So,
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, that's fine.
We can start pulling together a list, it'll be, and just maybe include it with the action matrix of kind of some of the items that we're watching.
okay, and that won't hurt the part for the library, that won't affect it at all, okay?
Nope.
We can do it the next meeting.
Or even a
It's
future
gonna
meeting
have to be a
after that. I
future.
think the only real thing we'll be up against is as you start presenting capital reserve funds to the budget committee for consideration, if you're draining money out of this capital reserve fund, are you going to recharge it? And that's
the discussion, right?
but
And
that'll be in October, November.
that's why I agree with Mark. I think we should at least have somewhat of a list, even if it is at the first half of the year, we can make some decisions really quick and then make a decision on whether or not we're gonna pull it out of the excess benefits line.
And
I
as we move forward, we can always take that list, look at it, readjust it, do it again so that it's prioritized a little different.
So if we need a motion for a list, I make a motion that we get a list of the items that the departments think that they will need the excess benefits line from in a priority order so that way we can make decision at the following meeting on the library.
Second.
A motion by Josh, second by Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
So we've already done tab 8B and 8C. At 8D, you have your New Hampshire Municipal Association proposed legislative policy and principles for the next legislative session, 2027 and 2028. The town is a member of New Hampshire Municipal Association, and this is basically all the towns get together, all the participating members get together and craft, they have subcommittees that craft these revised policies and principles, and will direct NHMA staff on which bills they will advocate for, which ones they'll advocate against, or any that really don't fall under their purview, they don't take any action on. So I'd ask you to review it, have discussion, and again, really the only deadline for this is by your next meeting. If you wanted to submit a floor proposal, if you see something that's on this policy and principles that's missing and you want to submit a floor proposal, that has to be done by August 4th. And then by the end of August, you need to vote to authorize somebody to vote on the town's behalf to act as a delegate at the Legislative Policy Conference on September 11th.
September 11th, okay.
Derek, I didn't have a problem with like a lot of the general upfront pieces. They seem to be kind of like the risk pools, that sort of thing, because that seems to be what we're talking about all the time.
Yeah, yep.
But like, and the right to know laws, I think it's interesting what they're saying there, but I mean, like, I didn't see like hard and fast kind of approaches as to what they're planning to do around that. It's more of like, hey, there's a lot of extra time being spent, so do you have an idea as to like what they're thinking on any of those?
No, so a lot of times they'll just advocate when a bill comes in, they've got to kind of look at it through this lens. So if all of a sudden a bill were to be proposed to change right to know that NHMA staff feels is going to create a huge time burden, then they would advocate against that. So they don't really get into specifics of, they don't actually advocate very much for actually LSRs for submitting legislation. It's more, how are they going to react once legislation is proposed?
The LSRs come in after the next election in November.
Yeah. And those are what become the bills at the House and the Senate.
Yeah, the only other one that kind of like really stuck out to me was the substance and abuse prevention response.
That's always brought up quite a bit of discussion at the, because it's, you have people that fall on both sides of that argument. So that one usually brings up a lot of discussion once we get to the policy conference.
And if you look at the language, a lot of what they look for in every section, including that one, is local control. They want to advocate in most cases for local control, whether it's, for communities to opt into things if they want to participate, rather than, say, bills coming forward where it's not an opt-in or an opt-out, it's a you will allow this kind of a thing.
Well, I just want to make clear that like we don't have any say over rules and regulations on this. So like, why are we trying to opt in or opt out of legislation on these pieces? Like typically we don't have any say for the most part, and I don't think we have enough staff to go and push substance abuse programs or anything else like that here in the community. So I would hope that we wouldn't be trying to push for local supervision of that.
No, it's more of, as Derek said, if an LSR is presented, as we've seen in the past, for instance, on the sale of a product, they may say, similar to like we saw with zoning, where an LSR may come in and say, this is going to be allowed in every community, period. NHMA would look at their guidelines to determine if they're going to advocate against that on behalf of the communities to remain, independent in whether or not they're going to participate in that. So they would, oppose legislation that's a blanket in that case.
Well, I think that's something that we would all have to be aligned on because, we're only one state in this area that basically does not sell like cannabis, for instance, and that is a revenue generating source.
But I think the point is that if they passed it at the state level, they wouldn't, and they were trying to say that everybody now had to do it, NHMA would push that we as Goffstown Select Board or people would get to decide whether we wanted to sell it, not have the state sit there and say, everybody has to, you can't stop them, that's the way it is. Goffstown decides what happens to Goffstown.
Right, and that's why in the red line you see that it actually moved from one category to another. It used to be opposes, now it supports, in that they're saying it's becoming more likely that we're seeing more LSRs related to this. However, if you're going to pass something, we would like to see these benchmarks. We'd like to see discussions about community impact fees or discussions where a community could come up with an individual agreement. And that's what these guidelines are for.
Well,
it's not guaranteeing
I'm definitely
anything.
behind, like I want the money. Like,
Yeah, that's what they're looking to advocate for in the future. But again, this is just their draft for all the communities to consider.
We'll have a discussion on that next.
Yeah, so if the board members can continue to look at this, what we've done in the past, the board has options to, you could grant broad authority to whoever your delegate is. I've been to the last couple and voted on those. You could say we support all these proposed except for, we really don't like this one. Because what happens on the day of is everybody that's participating goes up, you sit around and they go through these one by one and do like a card and vote. Yep.
I don't know if I saw any on AI. There's nothing.
I don't remember seeing anything
I didn't
for
either.
AI.
Like data centers, build outs.
I think there was some data centers under land use.
Here it is. Well, no, there's AI pieces underneath legislation and information and technology.
Okay.
Right, yeah, on page 15 is there.
So that may be just a couple areas that we may want to lean into. I know that Merrimack, it was Merrimack that had issue with like an ice facility or whatever too.
Yep.
Okay, A to E.
Yeah, so this is the electricity supply bid results, and I'll let Danielle, she's been working on that.
So I passed out an updated sheet to everyone with today's most recent figures. And that's your attention as well, because that does differ from what we had. It actually went down a little bit, so we're happy for that. At this point, we are recommending a 48-month contract, looking at the market. So on the large sheet, we're recommending the FCM adjustable first point power 48-month contract at a 0.12107 per kilowatt hour rate. So obviously the utilities always go out several digits, and those rates are pretty complex. I've looked through everything with our consultant, and that has been a huge help because having the expertise within the industry has made a big difference in what we're actually looking at. Because as you'll see, it's in the full bid stack, which is the grid on the right. It's not the lowest bid, but the reason is it's the most stable, and it has the longest stability rate for the town. So if you look out 4 years, even though some of these other ones that are near it are also 48-month terms, they have FCM and Daisy adjustable, which can really skew their data. And so Smartest Energy, we felt was coming in a little bit under bid, actually, when you consider what's built into their rates. And I'm happy to explain that. We have some visuals here that also can explain the market and the rate build out.
So it says adjustable, but we're doing 48 months. Is that 48 months at that
So
price?
only the FCM component is adjustable. So if you look in your packet at the fold-out section, the last large page of your fold-out has a bar chart. And so what we're looking at in those rates, the blue portion is the actual electrical supply. The FCM is the little orange component. The Daisy is the light blue. And then you have a few other ancillaries, administrative adders, things like that. So we're locking in the majority of the rate. There's only one component that could still mobilize, and that's the FCM, which that's a piece that only has the ability to adjust once or twice a year. It's actually going to be changing in June of '28. So FCM stands for the Forward Capacity Market. Currently, that's an annual auction where all utility generators base their operational costs, and they submit that to the regulator, and they have to project 3 years out of what their operational costs will be, and then the regulator sets this FCM rate that gets billed into any rate that's offered. And then starting in June of 2028, they're switching from a 3-year projection to a twice-a-year seasonal projection. And because of that, it would be that piece of the rate could adjust, but it won't adjust until at least post-June 2028. And then we'd see an adjustment potentially for the winter of 28 into 29. And that would maybe one more after that if it's the 4-year cycle. So it's a pretty small amount, and looking at the projectors and everything in the market, we're expecting that adjustment may only amount to something like $1,500 in year 3, which is not a huge swing. And obviously when we do our budget, each year we have the opportunity to adjust for things that we're expecting like that.
So if the rates do change, then we can go back and go to the market if it gets too high. Is that what I'm reading here?
No, what it is the regulator is gonna change a component of the rate, but we would still be locked in with that same supplier. It's just, it wouldn't be changing every bill cycle or anything like that. It would change once, maybe twice during the
There's a
term of the
com-
whole contract.
Danielle, there's a comment in the packet that says if the rates are more than 10% above the initial rates, I'll return. So you're saying
That's
that
me if
you have to pay.
tomorrow these rates are
So what we're,
10%
yeah, what we're
different.
seeking is authorization to have Danielle act on this, because these rates that you have here are gonna change when they report tomorrow.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What time do they report tomorrow?
So every single day when they go to lock in, there's a different rate based on, almost like the New York Stock Exchange, like it's constantly changing. That's why we got these rates today. The rates in your packet, which were higher, were actually from Thursday. So just a few days makes a difference on that rate.
What time do they change the rates though?
They don't change them at a specific, I believe it's like 9 AM or something like that.
So we wouldn't be able to get in before they change the rates?
He needs to get this.
Like,
Oh,
if we-
to get this one?
Yeah.
It is possible, yeah. That tomorrow morning, like, I send off the information tonight and they lock in first thing. And normally they do approve it, barring anything absolutely insane happens overnight that flips the market
You
upside
mean,
down.
you mean like a locking of the strike?
Yeah, I mean,
A war?
if something like that happened tonight specifically, I would probably be back to you because it would be more than a 10% swing.
I make a motion to authorize the Assistant Town Administrator to coordinate the competitive energy services to accept the lowest state bid for electric supply over a 36 or 48-month period, and to authorize the Assistant Town Administrator to assign the necessary paperwork with either the current supplier or the low bidder as presented.
I second.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Allison. Any more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
So, at tab 8F, part of the CDBG grant application, they do require us to put out an RFP for who's going to do the grant writing services. The town received 3 submittals for this. One vendor submitted a very high-cost proposal for just under $9,000. One was a flat rate proposal, and one vendor proposed an hourly rate of $100 per hour, but it was very unclear on how many hours they would require. They had initially put that they only required 20, but we were very concerned. We looked at the experience these 3 vendors had with CDBG grant applications. We also looked at experience with this project in particular. So I'm making a recommendation this evening for grant writing services to be awarded to Donna Lane, the CDBG consultant located in Conway, New Hampshire.
So does this get pulled out of the general fund and then?
This comes actually out of the CDBG grant application only if awarded. So that this evening you authorize the submittal of the grant. If it's awarded, the grant writer would.
So they write it after it gets awarded?
No, they
write
write
it before.
Write it
Yeah,
before.
they're kind of.
So what happens if we don't get the grant?
They don't get paid.
They don't get paid.
They don't get paid?
Correct.
Okay, so it's a contractual obligation that they have to win it in order to get paid?
Yes.
I love that, okay. I'll make a motion to authorize town administrator to engage Donna Lane in the grant writing process and to authorize the town administrator to sign any necessary paperwork related to the grant on behalf of the town with the understanding that the grant writer only gets paid by winning the grant.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Mark. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
That's all I had for the town administrator's report.
So that would bring us to old business. DPW fleet analysis.
Small
small handout just with some pictures of the two in particular solid waste vehicles that tend to throw us all for a loop when we talk about them without something to look at. Sorry.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Try to give them titles, but just the first page is an example of our current curbside packer truck, and then the bottom would be a rental unit, similar body style. And then on the second, so when we talk about curbside packers or packer trucks, or curbside collection trucks, that's what we're talking about. And then on the second page is up top is our existing semi-tractor trailer truck with roll-off trailer, so that large trailer is able to grab and lift our demolition and metal containers, large metal containers at the transfer station, pull it onto the trailer, and then deliver those to the ultimate disposal sites. In the bottom would be a sample of a combination roll-off truck. So that's what we've been looking to go to the last couple of years with CIP, would be to replace that larger combination unit, which requires a Class A CDL, very unwieldy, high maintenance item with the trailer, and it's kind of a one-off, larger than the standard size. So we have bigger containers than most anybody else. I can't just call somebody else to come and grab our containers because they're so big. If the truck goes down, we're kind of stuck. If the trailer goes down, I should say we're stuck. We're looking to get to a smaller combination unit, which will require some smaller containers, but it will provide us a lot more flexibility with who can actually make those runs. A Class B CDL would only be required for this, and everybody on staff has that. That would also be something that would be available for rental. At the amount that we use the roll-off trailer per week, it's not an everyday item. It's as needed as those containers fill up, so certain times a year. It slows down, of course, with demolition debris and metal. We certainly use the truck itself is used to haul our solid waste trailers, but it's a backup unit. We can rent a semi-tractor without too much trouble that has a regular fifth wheel hitch for those solid waste transfer trailers. We can't rent a roll-off trailer that big, so that's kind of a limiting factor there. So the idea with that would be on the roll-off truck we get a little more flexibility of use, but also a little more standardized, so if that one unit does go down, we have backup options available. So sorry if I got ahead of myself, but I wanted to describe what I handed out to you. So I don't know what the board intended. Do you want me to just kind of run through the executive overview of kind of what sort of things we're dealing with in DPW and what options might be open to us, or do you have specific questions? You just want to get right to it, or what was your thought?
I think, Adam, I did the best trying to explain what you told me last time. Sure. Maybe you can kind of go through some of the things that you and I talked on the phone, and
sure.
like recommendations that you think we should be doing now and also in the future.
Yep.
That maybe can help us.
Can do. So, all right, stop me if I'm getting too long-winded. That never happens. In general, on my memo, page 2 is kind of the list of our big ticket items, fleet and equipment. As you see, we have quite a few. 67, I think, is the final count of the big stuff that's CIP tracked. In general, not in general, we have always proceeded with the pay-as-you-go model. So we have enough that it's usually, if CIP was progressing as planned, we were able to spread those out and keep a reasonably good replacement cycle without large fluctuations year to year. The problem begins to come about when CIP gets deferred or that equipment that Chief talks about going up 28% in just a couple of years, that kind of thing. As we get farther behind, now we're starting to stack, and we've seen some pretty good increases in now what going forward CIP has to look like each year to keep up. And at the end of that table that you've got, I've also got the kind of age at replacement versus what our pretty generous replacement targets are. So a couple of years after I got here, I extended a lot of the replacement cycles for some of the smaller trucks in particular. But at some point you can't hold on to everything forever. So even with our extended cycles, we're still going to be on target by the time those units come up for replacement, even if every single item that's in CIP makes it to the budget and the budget passes. So we're coming up against some loggerheads. And where it's also a issue is the operating budget. So we have aging equipment, we have fleet mechanics, very capable, but there's big stuff that comes along, and it's, okay, do I put everything else aside, the regular maintenance of the department, to work on this truck? It might take 10 hours, it might be a diagnostic issue we don't even have the capability in-house to handle. So when you send something out, that cost goes up. Some of the, just as kind of a general kind of sense of where we're spending some of this funds, especially solid waste fleet maintenance. So these curbside packers, the older they get, we are spending 25,000 a year in some cases on very large repairs, usually emissions related. It's all expensive stuff, but the arms break down, the automated packer, the floors need to get redone. So the longer we hold on to those, that annual maintenance spend increases as well. We start to see that at about year 10. So once we've held on to something for 10 years, it really, the cost per year starts to go up each year. Our cost of maintenance townwide has gone up. It's a little slower. We've only seen a 28% change in the last 5 years, but versus a 55% change in the actual purchase prices of things and the stacking effect we've had with CIP. But looking at kind of where we might be able to make some inroads, I don't think anybody loves the fact that we have 4 curbside trucks. It was kind of we held on to the outgoing truck a few years ago because we experienced so many breakdowns with that very often we're stuck with no backup truck, and the 2 on the road are not driving all that well. So everybody just kind of, I don't know, probably not the wrong adjective, but we're all holding our breath waiting for the next breakdown. In that point, are we going to defer curbside collection? Are we going to have to come in on a weekend to pick up? That kind of stuff happens, and it's hard to pick up a phone and have a curbside truck at your door immediately. So looking at a few things, there's the biggest probably company that provides service here is Big Truck Rental. They have a couple different plans that I'm going to recommend we take advantage of. For our frontline trucks, they have a complete fleet program, they call it, and it's just a annual rental payments. But every truck you get is 0 to 6 months old. Hardly any hours on them. They're all still under warranty. So any repairs that, not preventative maintenance, but any repairs that have to happen are under warranty, so you're not paying for that as a customer. The company is. If the vehicle goes down, you're getting credits for that time that it's down towards your rent, so you're actually spending less for your rental for that vehicle if it's down from a couple days or a week or whatever. They have because you're a customer with this program, they have a backup unit that they can get on the road to you to cover if it does turn into an extended repair. And the overall spend, although you're on the hook for an annual rental payment, and it's a pretty good sized number. It's $130,000 a year for each curbside truck. But when you start looking at the cost of 4 trucks, replacing those 4 trucks, even on an extended cycle like we have, the cost of maintenance, out over the life of a CIP, it's pretty darn close to the same amount, and what you're getting in return is more highly reliable vehicles, fewer of them. So if you have trying to keep fleet sizes low, of course, is always a concern. So I'd like to go from a 4-truck owned model to a 2-truck rental model, paying that full rental price for 2 vehicles. But they have another program which is great. I sort of hinted at it with the roll-off truck. They have an on-site rental by the hour. So for a 3rd truck, so we would now have 3 trucks, all about the same, brand new. They'll let you keep it on site, and you don't pay anything except the cost to get the driver to drop it off at your door. If you need that truck to be put into service, they have it on their GPS AVL, it's just automatic vehicle location system, but also you scan in to be able to coordinate the billing at the end of the month to make sure you're getting billed for the right number of hours. If you used it 10 hours last month, they're going to bill you for $50 an hour for 10 hours. If you didn't need a backup truck because your 2 new trucks that they sent you are in great shape and they haven't had any downtime, you pay nothing for that month for to have a third truck, hot standby, nothing wrong with it, it's brand new. They will call you at some point in the 18 to 24 month window and say, this is the time where we want to sell these vehicles, we're going to have a new truck sent your way. So they handle that part of things, but it seems like in no case are you going to have a truck that's in hand longer than 24 months, which to our mechanics, obviously they're in love with this idea because of the amount of different things that we have to do to these trucks to keep them on the road. The preventive maintenance would be the responsibility of us while we own them. So for the backup truck, there's probably not a whole lot of preventive maintenance that's going to be triggered because it just won't get that many hours while we would have it. But for the frontline trucks, you know, the tires, the fluids, that kind of thing would be our responsibility. But as I mentioned, they're all under warranty, so you're capping the potential cost at a reasonable number. You've got your rental and you've got your PM cost. So I think it'd be a pretty good way to jump right into this right out of the gate with units that are already due or overdue for replacement. We could shrink the fleet size and cut down on our annual spend, at least for the curbside trucks right out of the gate. So that would be first item of recommendation would be to look at developing that model. Now, as far as implementation timeline, I'll mention something here about financing and the budget end of things. So the big downside with going from a pay-as-you-go model to any kind of lease rental is that you no longer have asset in hand. So we need some kind of way or assurances that next year there's not a defunding of all the equipment rental. I mean, the town can do whatever the town wants to do, I guess, the voters, right? But we want to be able to still maintain service without having to worry each and every single year about how we're going to fund the truck rental payments. What I would recommend is that we look into developing or putting on the ballot for 27 a special revenue fund, which would allow either just DPW, I guess, or the whole town, all departments, to capture any revenue from selling surplus equipment, vehicles or equipment, and have that revenue deposited automatically into the special revenue fund, which would then provide seed money and annual operating funds that the board could be the agents to expend, and then we could pull at least until we run out of equipment to sell in 10, 12 years. We could be pulling for the rental payments out of those proceeds. So that would be a good way to have a maybe zero or low impact to the operating budget and capital budget, and still be able to get that fleet turnover with pretty marked difference. So if you kind of take that, without getting into specifics for other vehicles, if you take that approach with some of the recommendations, we can go from turning over 5 or 6 pieces of equipment in year one of CIP. We could do 15, 20, and really get up on, get everything back into cycle, and still have a lower end result at the end of the year as far as the overall spend. Where the rental payments start to come in is once you've started to turn over the whole fleet, and now you're renting multiple pieces of equipment. The last few years of CIP, it starts to catch up and actually overtake the current pay-as-you-go model projections. But I think we all know what I'm projecting in CIP for the next 5 years. There's zero chance that 100% of those 5 is going to make it all the way anyway. So, it's just the way things go. So I think it's a pretty good way to fast track and especially catch up on some of the things that have been deferred. So that's a big one to target.
So Adam, we could do the rental $50 an hour now.
Can and actually have because that's a no. It's in the we were talking about purchasing limits early. That's an easy one because it's a no-brainer. We can now we have set this up. We've got a unit sitting on site just waiting for a need to be used at some point. But what that allows us to do is the next time there's a major breakdown in one of the either the front line or the backup trucks, we can now make that decision.
What's the delivery fee of one of those?
I think it's like sounds right, $1,700. But now we can make the decision. Okay, if the 2012 or the 2016 have an issue,
we're not sending that out for a $10,000 repair. It's, you know,
So
makes no
I did
sense.
hopefully I did the math right. It's $50 an hour.
Yep.
And if we ran it 40 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year, and we add in $1,700, we're looking at, my math, I'm hoping is right, about $106,000 a year. So why is it cheaper to rent by the hour than it is to rent?
I would have to look back through what they've given me. They do base the hourly rental on the prorated assumptions of a 1-year rental. So,
So would we be using it more hours than 40 hours a week?
no,
Is the rental one slightly smaller? I was trying to tell from their spec.
no, the rental, it is there. So the rental you may have is 2 yards smaller on the body, but they may. I'd have to dig into the numbers, but they base the hourly rate on a certain assumption of number of hours per year used. So,
So if we sold the oldest one now, how much do we think we would get out of that?
okay, so then we get into the revenue piece. So the way it's currently set up, any vehicle that's sold, proceeds go to the general fund.
Sure.
So for the 2012, frankly, not a whole heck of a lot. We're probably talking 5 figures, but I'm not sure how much into the 5 figures. Probably 15 to 20,000, I would guess. But we haven't straight up sold one of these in a little bit, so I'm not too sure about that.
Is that the one that has the broken glass issue with the recycling?
Yes, actually it is, the bad
Okay.
seal. But there's an opportunity to, if the plan is to not repair this, if it's gonna break down again, do we need to have it sit until, who knows when, next year, until another one comes around? Yes, I think it's a good opportunity to at least sell the oldest truck, get that off the books. It won't be sitting around, mice housing it or whatever. It's never gonna be worth more than it is at this point. And the need's not gonna be there if we have a third backup truck in hand, plus this $50 an hour if we needed it, truck. So I think that would be a good way for you folks to start working in the right direction with fleet sizing, and also get some of that general fund, revenue, if you wanted to do something with that at tax rate setting time, for sure. I would recommend, if we can, on most items, holding off if the board does want to proceed with a special revenue fund. We wouldn't want to sell off too much before that would happen, because some of the newer trucks in particular would provide a good seed for those rental payments. For some of the major turnover items, I would say we'd want to wait. I can't afford even a $60,000 rental payment on a Frontline, of course, truck.
Well, we can't shoot ourselves in the foot either if
Right.
we end up letting go of one and then this rental program, it doesn't go so great.
Right. So I think looking at the article first, if we get the good buy-in with the budget committee, the town, the article passes, that allows us to immediately, start moving these older trucks as they're worth more now. And then the other immediate item, I would recommend, we currently, in the memo I have some information about how much we rent, different equipment that we rent throughout the year. We rent a mini excavator for our highway crews throughout the construction season. We can actually get a better price by financing. CAT offers a 10-year, actually 7 is the standard, but for government they can go to 10 years. A 10-year financing on a machine that would cost us less per year, and we'd have an excavator year-round instead of just the summer months, and we'd spend less as a department for that. So if the board wants to move ahead with that, I would make that recommendation that we turn back the leased mini excavator and proceed with the government financing option on a new one.
How much have we spent on that already this year, Adam, you think?
Probably about 20, yeah, maybe if you.
Already spent 20 grand on leasing on that?
I think we're either 3 months in or 4.
It's Eastwood, right?
Yeah, that one is Beaubear.
Okay.
So having the other one would be about the same price we've already spent.
Yep, and
So would it make sense?
right? It'd be-
Would it make sense to do it this year or next year?
I think, well, we would only be paying for a partial year of the financing, so I think it would make sense to do it sooner rather than later, because every month we hang on to the rental unit, it costs us more than.
And that would be an
Then
outright
owning one.
purchase?
So,
So they offer a
Like a lease to
10-year finance, but you can do an annual payment, you can do monthly payments, but they're flexible with the terms of it, but they do have municipal non-appropriation clauses, so that allows the board to take an action without going to town meeting and saying we need a 10-year, approval. If the town decides not to fund, in this case, we take it out of the road plan because it's usually road plan related, but the town decides to unfund DPW and we just don't have the money, we tell CAT and they come get it,
Okay.
so it goes.
yeah, so
But we don't own it at the end of 10 years, or do they have
do.
like a
It's
dollar
a
buyout?
Yep, this
Okay.
one's a buyout, yep.
Okay,
Yep,
$1.
so-
yeah.
So it would be cheaper to do that starting now
Yeah,
than go with the other one.
Yep.
yeah, that's a good idea.
How much is it a month?
So their, I don't have a monthly rate from them, but their annual,
so we would probably typically do it as an annual, but we would know this first one will be
Yep.
prorated.
so their annual, sorry, I got a bunch of different equipment here.
4,500 a month on the,
How much?
Currently renting at $4,500 a month.
And this would be how much a month?
And this, so a little bit of spec TBD with what size unit, a comparable size but with tract that gave me $16,600 a year for 12 months. And then a larger that would be, so we're gonna fall in the middle here, I'm guessing, but the units that we currently have, the excavators, the larger ones, that unit, a comparable unit would be $41,000 a year.
so compared to the mini excavator, it's like 1,400 a month versus the 4,500 that we're paying now.
But we normally give up the lease.
The
This allows
rental,
us to
yeah.
keep it, yeah.
Right.
So how much more time would you normally be keeping the lease?
So we normally will run on the third machine until, almost until snow falls, so.
Probably November
Yeah,
timeframe?
Thanksgiving is kind of like the mental, kind of end, but.
So what do we got, like 4 more months, basically?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, it's like another 18.
So basically, we still make out cheaper if we did it. I'll make a motion to approve you, Adam, to proceed down that path. To move to the model of not leasing or renting, I don't know what we call it.
I guess a good motion would be to utilize the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement to finance a mini excavator and
In return,
cease
cease
the rental, monthly rental.
I'll make the motion as
Second.
stated.
What he said.
Yeah.
Okay, motion by Josh, I think, and second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
So Richard gets back.
Opposed?
He went to the bathroom, I think, with a bonus.
Yeah, so it's four.
Maybe
Four ayes.
So Adam,
Okay.
if we got rid of because you said you've already acted on getting the standby.
Yes.
So really, if we got rid of the oldest truck and put it back in the general fund, that would be kind of protecting us because we have the rental and you may end up using it?
I think it's a no-brainer at this point. I certainly don't need,
You don't need the fourth.
I don't need 2.5 backups at this point, which is what that 2012 truck is. It's kind of a half truck at the moment. So if you want to make a motion to sell that.
I'll make a motion to sell the oldest
Transfer.
curbside Packer truck, the 2012, and move that money, the proceeds into the general fund.
And if you could,
Second.
Hold on.
Municipal, is that
On,
Municipal?
On
Is
yeah,
that
if that's the correct path on Municipal.
I think so.
Motion by Josh, second,
Yep.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. the ayes
Abstain.
have it.
I wasn't really here for the discussion.
Yeah, Richard didn't vote.
Just catch you up, Richard. Selling the oldest curbside Packer.
Cool.
And
Just into the general fund.
we have approved getting an excavator through Sourcewell that will be cheaper than what we're paying through the current rental process.
Awesome. Let's see, so on page 6 of the memo, I kind of had recommendations there. The other thing that we could do immediately without that special revenue fund, if you want to talk about this, is the roll-off truck. So that's been deferred a couple times, CIP. They have that same on-demand hourly rental arrangement for that type of truck. And I think regardless if we do it now or next year, I think that's the model that makes the most sense because we do not use that truck anywhere near 40 hours a week.
Talk about the one that has the giant
pitch. Exactly, yeah.
But you don't have the right size containers right now.
So we don't have the right size containers. So they are probably something I could get a rental price on. I just haven't gotten that far down the road yet. So we could look at renting a couple cans. We could.
I think we need to evaluate the cost of the cans.
Yeah.
Right? Should we own the cans or should we rent them?
It's a good question. I don't know.
And I would also caution the board here is if you move to a rental model on this particular truck,
Yeah.
it will not be in your default budget. So if you sell the bigger unit and you move to this, then that's going to widen the gap between your default and your proposed budget this coming season.
Yeah, I think we should discuss this with the budget committee on what it is that we should be doing now. If it goes in to next year's budget, will it become part of the default budget? If it
The
becomes
voters
OpEx?
approve it, yes. If the voters approve the, yes.
So I think what we need to get them bought into is this model, Adam, because I think there's a lot of value in this. I mean, there's also been a lot of discussion about the whole fleet management side of the house. Like some of these, I assume like some of these could be in the fleet management portion as well too. They may have some of these.
Some. Enterprise, when we talked to them, they didn't have they didn't have any construction equipment, and the heavy duty stuff was kind of hit and miss.
Yeah, they were very much more the low, the SUVs, the vehicles.
The one that I had sent you supposedly does some construction stuff. They're a Canadian company, though. So, again, like, rather keep the money local, but at the same time, I think that that's part of the discussion. Like, we can't get any of those in there, then like this rental path may be the right path to go, and I think we need to get that into default. Now, if we got the $130K a year for the Packer trucks, curbside Packer trucks, that's $260K a year. You're not spending that in maintenance right now at all. No. So basically, we'd be selling that off and then trying to figure out how that becomes part of the budget every year.
Right. So at least at first, if the revenue fund is established, we can use the proceeds of, even if we just want to keep it simple mentally, the 3 remaining trucks, let's say March, those, we pull the trigger on getting the rental units in and we immediately put the others out for sale. I'm not sure Municipal for the 2 newer trucks in particular may not be the best. We might have better luck actually reaching out to like the Pinard Wastes of the world and that kind of do a little more pound the pavement type work on those because they do have a lot of life left in them. But anyway, the revenue from those would, in my head anyway, be the first few years worth of those rental payments. So I would imagine maybe 2.5 years worth of that from the sale of proceeds. And then we need to look at whether or not those rental payments become part of the operating budget, or do you have a line in the CIP that just turns into annual payments rather than purchase?
So from an accounting standpoint, if it's ongoing rental, it wouldn't be in the CIP because that's strictly for capitalized items. But I think, isn't the purchase of one of those Packers like close to 400,000?
They're going to be
probably closer to 5.
Probably, yeah.
5 at this point.
So the rental essentially is spreading it out across 3 or 4 or 5 years comparatively to what it would be to outright purchase it. It's
Right.
kind of doing that smoothing of the
You get the,
cost.
What's the projected replacement on that?
on
The Packers that you wanted to have?
Oh, so currently, yeah.
Is it 10 or 15
At
years?
this point, we have a 10-year goal, but we're obviously well beyond that on two of them. And, yeah, if we went with the current model, replacing as we go, we kind of still need, 3 trucks. So 3 trucks, 10 years, every few years you have a Packer come up. So as Danielle said, at some point soon, we're gonna hit 500 grand every 3 years for 3 or 4 years, I guess.
So if it's every 10 years, we have 3 that we have to replace already, you're looking at 1.5 million.
Right. And then, so now you're benefiting from that, not having that cost,
you're
but
spreading that
you're also reducing the maintenance and the downtime so I think it's a no-brainer, and you're constantly turning those trucks.
I wonder if we propose that we do it with one next year and then the next one the following year. And we move to the rental, or that rental model. And we sell off 2 next year, we put them in the special fund, and then you sell off the next one the following year.
Certainly can phase in however you want to do it.
Okay.
And then, then the remainder of the recommendations, it's really looking at 27, but we could front load some of the, both excavators are coming due. One's overdue and one's coming due. We got one loader that's due, a backhoe which is overdue, and those rental payments have been pretty crippling the last 2 years now. When that goes down, and one of the skid steers. So those are other items that we could do a similar long-term finance or a lease.
I mean, like we approved tonight, something like that?
Exactly.
So is that something you want to figure out as part of the budget then, Adam?
I think so, and there's going to be some work with the revenue fund and how the budgeting for that works. I'm guessing, I know, but I guess isn't a good answer. So, right, what do we program in for year 1? If it's approved, there's going to be some monies appropriated, but maybe not, because they would be proceeds of sale, so.
Well, we still have to do gross appropriation, but we would probably treat it as an offset of revenue, especially in that first year.
I guess
Until
we
we can prove the fund is self-sustaining.
Right.
I mean, there's so many unknowns about how much we could get from the sale of the old equipment.
Right. You almost have to budget and anticipate it. If we anticipate selling 4 pieces, what's the best guess of expected revenue, I guess, for those? And there's similar models for the heavy dump plow truck packages as well. So I think for the amount that we have and the amount that is getting deferred and starting to stack up, it certainly seems like a good way to do it, as long as we can couch the downside, which is that possibility of left holding nothing if everything's unfunded, by the town or the budget committee. Grader retirement, that's another one if the board's looking to, get some more general fund revenue prior to tax rate setting time. The grader we don't use much anymore. We converted a handful of, not a handful, 3 I guess, gravel roads. So we have fewer gravel roads than we've had in the past. At this point, the grader's been down a couple times over the last few years, so we've we've contracted out some one-time grading of the remaining gravel roads as they need it. If you wanted to sell that 1992 grader and get a couple grand for that, that's
So we're not using the grader at all?
right now. Not much. I mean, in a pinch, we could. But
Sell it, put the money in the bank.
It's time to go to pasture, one way or another. So
So we're basically contracting every time we do the grading?
yeah. And it's not much. Any repair on this thing is pretty. It's big money to fix a machine that big, and it's that old. I'm not gonna put any more money into it. So if you want to sell it now or next year, it doesn't really change how we're gonna operate anyway. So might be a good one to move.
Motion?
Sell it now.
He needs a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Seconded.
Okay, motion by Mark, second by Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Gone.
I don't know if anybody else, my eyes are glazing over. Is there anything else you wanted to pick into tonight, or I think that's good to at least get us started?
I think it was good out of the box thinking, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's,
Was it 130 for the curbside rental?
yes.
130 for the
Yeah.
year each?
correct.
So if we were doing two of them, 260.
Yeah, if we do that and suggest it to the budget committee or whatever. they were doing in the
That's
past.
what
Right now, $50 per hour on the standby that's sitting out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a smaller truck, is that what?
It's slightly
slightly
small, yeah. It's the back, the body itself is, but the back door is a little more rounded, so
If we ended up using that or got forced into it, it's about $106K a year.
Where's it parked?
Which
In
I
the
I
shop?
would like an answer to that too. Why is it cheaper if we did it
Yeah, I'm sure.
hourly? Like, there's gotta be something, somewhere there's something missing. There's no way that, and if not, then why don't we just rent 3 trucks on demand? It's cheaper.
They're anticipating lower maintenance costs because they're not used as often, but we have to find out.
Yeah, I'll look at the math, how
Yeah.
they, what they use for an assumption on number of hours.
Yeah, I would just,
The
I really
roll-off,
poke at that.
I don't know if I mentioned it, the roll-off rental is $40 an hour, so it's a little less, smaller vehicle
For the truck or for
for
the,
the truck.
Yeah.
but not for the hauler?
The cans, I don't know yet, yep. I'll get
The
you that.
cans themselves have their own, like, connection point into the truck?
They have like a pin that gets hooked, and then they have wheels.
And they have wheels on them.
Yep, so the truck itself is what does the grab in the home.
Can you look at buying those trailers also, price-wise?
The cans.
The cans,
Yeah,
sorry.
because I don't think they have a ton of maintenance on them. You're just gonna beat the hell out of them, and then
Right.
you're gonna weld them if you need to.
Right, that's kind of where we're at. Our original plan, if CIP budget had passed for the roll-off, was to pay somebody to modify our cans. Looking at them, there's more that would need to be fixed than is left to cobble together with the current cans.
Yeah, because ours actually, they go up on the trailer, right?
Yes.
Whereas the other ones you're talking about have wheels built into them.
Ours have wheels as well, because they kind of get pulled up on, and they do,
Oh,
they roll up.
The big ones like this.
Exactly, yeah, kind
So it'd be a similar situation then.
Very similar, just smaller.
Smaller trailer.
Shorter.
So you'd be renting the trailer along with the truck? Is that the
So in
40?
this case, it's a combo, so the truck itself has like a flat,
I see it.
so the can on the bottom picture there is gonna be almost right up against the cab of the truck, rather than all the way back, starting at the fifth wheel.
It's a question on that, because we wouldn't have as much space for debris.
Right.
How much more would it be increasing on fuel?
So that's the thing, we'd look at along with, maybe the quantity of cans too. Do we get one more, whatever the.
Well, I'm just thinking the
Yep.
trips, because you may have to make more trips.
Yep.
So like, I think you need to do a quick back of the envelope calculation of like, we only take this like 5 times a year, but if we take the same amount of space, we're gonna be doing it 20 times, and this is how much time we spend on fuel, so what's the cost calculation of doing that?
Yep.
Or do they make them with a headboard to protect the cab? Any idea?
I don't know. I know that the way the rails go, it stops the can from going any farther. I'm not sure if you got into an accident, if it would matter either way, but.
So would you need less of a license to run one of these?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's value there, but that's a tricky one to put a number on, but yes.
Be what, a Class B?
We have,
Class
just
B?
to be for the proposed combo unit, once you get into the trailer, it becomes a Class A.
How many do we have with Class A? Is it just one person right now, 2 people?
Including the foreman at solid waste, we have our long haul truck driver. I mean, we have 5, I think, department-wide, but in solid waste itself, we just have the foreman and our tractor trailer, normal tractor trailer driver. And then our ground man also has an A currently, so we do have 3 that can kind of rotate through if need be, but now you're taking somebody off the transfer station to put them in the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay.
All right, I
Thank
will
you.
dig
Thank
into
you,
that
Adam.
for sure. Thank you for the action tonight. Sorry it was a Only seen one, but I think it'll pay off.
Okay, we move on to new business. County jail.
Yes, so I'm bringing to your attention that the Hillsborough County Department of Corrections, with some of their COVID funds, began a jail study to look at the Hillsborough County Jail on Valley Street in Manchester. And they presented this information to the county commissioners at the end of December and in January, and it resulted in 3 options for the county. One would be to repair the facility and upgrade it at its current location. Option 2 would be to renovate, put in some additions at the current facility, and option 3 would be to construct a new facility in Goffstown off New Hampshire Route 114, and this is onto existing county land on the west side of Route 114 between St. Anselm Drive and Mast Road. This is under the limited access portion of Route 114. So we're kind of bringing this to your attention. What you have in your packet are some of the department concerns with option 3 if the county moves towards bringing the county jail to Goffstown. Starting with the planning and construction phases, that would have a significant impact on building inspection, fire, and DPW engineering. This is for the review of permits, fire protection, life safety features, and any on-site work. During the construction phases, a lot of that is actually, the town would be compensated with permitting fees for those. Operationally, this has a higher frequency, this type of facility would have a higher frequency of medical calls than a typical commercial property. There'd also be increased prevalence of chronic medical conditions, mental health emergencies, and incidents involving inmate behavior. A lot of the day-to-day operations regarding the law enforcement piece would be covered by the Department of Corrections and the Hillsborough County Sheriff, but a lot of the EMS calls, medical or any fire-related, would have to be picked up by Goffstown Fire. Additionally, there'd be a large need for new training for fire department because currently the primary responding department is City of Manchester. And then, just general to try and get that word out. So what we've provided you is a printout of the jail study presentation, and I flagged where they show option 3 and minutes from the meeting. I did talk to the county administrator about a month ago. He indicated that their FY27 budget does not include funds for further planning or for building design at this point. But I did not get an indication, what the next step in the process. They may be waiting until their new delegation gets seated after the elections, and we'll probably pick it up in 2027.
How many beds do they have in Manchester?
It's in the planning study. I think they were looking for 485 beds with, so the existing facility has 377 cells with 721 beds.
So it's more beds.
I believe there's page 103 had a breakdown of a new building.
So the new one would be 356 and 485 beds, but then, so there would be a jail portion, and then what they call the CCC, which is the Community Corrections Center. I believe that's a lower tier, so that would have an additional 70 beds, so they'd be looking for 555 total.
Less beds than what they have in Manchester?
Yeah, a few less.
Are they planning on keeping the Manchester facility?
No. If they were to go with option 3, they would construct this one, they would transition over, and then they would either look at reuse or sale of the property.
Are they at capacity in Manchester?
I believe there's quite a few operational issues there.
So it's operational, not beds are overutilized. So, and do we know how many, emergency calls that they have out of Manchester per year?
I believe that both the chiefs are shaking their heads,
You're like, yeah, we're aware of this one.
Hi again.
How you doing?
Good. So, just to give you guys a quick thought process, this is the biggest county population-wide in the state. We serve the two biggest cities in the state, Manchester and Nashua. So when this jail comes to Goffstown, it will be serving Hillsborough County, Nashua residents, Hudson, Manchester, Goffstown, all the way over to Peterborough. And speaking with my colleague over in Manchester, in the last 6 years, their PD-wise, it's very minimal. A lot of their calls are serving paperwork or warrant services. I've talked to the sheriff, and we have kind of a conversation that we have to go into a deeper conversation about whether or not the sheriff's going to be dealing with those type of situations or if it's going to be Goffstown Police. But Manchester PD has law enforcement capacity really has been minimal over there. Sheriffs typically are catching the fugitive of justice, any service of warrants, but they have been serving a lot of domestic violence petitions. One thing that I will note, though, one thing that didn't tie into the calls that I asked for, you know, where the county jail particularly sits in the city, there is a lot of calls of service in that area to begin with. So, you know, when people are released and things are moving and people are coming and going, there's no telling where those calls eventually, if they originate from the jail or if they originate from the street, because the people that have been released from that jail, and, you know, not saying that everybody that's released from jail is a bad human being, but, you know, there are some problems that come out of there. One thing, you know, where it is right now, if it's in our town and it's on the side of 114, you know, the question becomes that I've had from the very beginning is similar to what they do in Merrimack County, is like it's in the middle of nowhere. So when they release people from, we'll just say hypothetical drunk tank for the weekend because they've been, you know, taken into protected custody due to alcohol or drugs, where do they go on Monday? You know, or do they just get dropped off? Do people come pick them up? I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
I don't work at the jail.
There's no bus station or anything.
My colleague told me that they, you know, there's some different things they do in the city where people come get them, or they just get released to the city and they kind of find their way back to where their home is. So that's kind of where we're at PD-wise. We have had the prison here for many years. That did not impact us per se because DOC had their own investigative teams. When it came to our call for service for the prison, it was really based on visitors bringing contraband into the prison, where if they were bringing something in there, we would go in there and arrest them, bring them and book them and go from there. If there was ever any emergency in the prison, which I'm assuming is the same thing with the county, we would not be the first people in that jail. It would be their actual team that goes in there and deals with riots and stuff like that. State police would always deal with that. Our biggest things when we had the prison were people showing up to the fence, throwing things over the fence. We would go over there and, you know, and investigate what were they throwing over the fence. If there was an arrestable offense, we'd arrest them. But then again, that was a facility that held people for many years. It wasn't a, you know, pre-trial, thank you, confinement where they can stay up there a year. But other than that, there's a lot of people coming and going out of the county jail.
So you guys never would be called in, chief, for like backup or anything like that?
If the county jail was here, I would say at this, just based on what my colleagues said, if there was a big issue, they would call us. We'd be there. I know it'd be, considering the sheriff's headquarters right there, there's, you know, they have an abundance of sheriffs too that work in the county. They would go and respond, but obviously we're close too, so we would go to back them up, or if we were the first to be there, that's how it would go. The sheriff and I have had a kind of a non-formal conversation, like, how does this work out? Like, do you guys handle this? Are we going to end up handling this? And he was kind of saying that right now they handle some of the stuff for Manchester PD. Their deputies deal with that stuff. They have their own investigative team inside, so if there's drug use, there's gang violence, it's all dealt with internally. It's the stuff that happens around the outside of the jail is kind of, you know, more of like, it's in Goffstown, so it's our jurisdiction. But Manchester PD, they don't have a huge amount of calls there. So they show. from the specific facility itself.
Yeah, well, Manchester PD is like right up the road too.
Right, so the exterior of it is a little bit of a different question of like, how do they determine if those calls are generating, or originating from the jail to the next location, so.
Yeah.
And the whole backside of that, where they're proposing is all neighborhoods.
Yep, and the county nursing home, right. But I will say, and for the historians in this community, there was a county jail in this town for many years. I would say probably a long time ago, but, you know, there was one years and years and years ago. Predates me.
Why don't they want to put the jail back on their property?
Well,
It is one of the
Yeah.
options, it is one of the options. And
Okay, the property up here where the old jail used to be.
Where the women's prison was. Why can't they put it there? Because is what he's asking.
I think that's the commission's decision. I think, you know, I don't know that question, but I think it's their county land where they're putting it at. You know, I think if you want to ask me on the side, a pro would be something to be for us to engage them to see if that's something that if they're going to open it up. Does a new police department have the ability to kind of work its way through that area as well? I don't know. I think that's a good thought process too.
I think if they're headed down that path, it would make sense, Chief. I do think that there's some tax burden that obviously goes along with that too. They seem to be tearing stuff down and building it left and right. And I think that's another discussion.
Yeah. But Mark, just my speculation on your question, I would imagine that corner lot is a very valuable, you know, long-term business or commercial development that they could probably profit if they were to sell it.
Yeah, probably.
They won't sell it to us though, but,
Nope.
sorry, I'll bring it up.
I don't even care if they'd sell it privately, at least we'd get a business revenue.
Yeah,
Or
that would
taxes
be
from a
nice.
business, that would be fantastic.
That'd probably be something
They
else
could
that we
sell
should
any of
push.
it, would be fantastic. So we could get some tax dollars in.
Yeah, I mean,
How many acres does the Hillsborough County own of
I
our,
don't know
of
if it's 600,
Goffstown?
700, they
600.
600 to 700
they own quite a bit.
of things that cannot be developed that raise revenue for us.
yeah, that would be nice.
Do we get a discount on our county taxes then in Goffstown? No. Wow, okay,
We pay the same as any other non-host community.
interesting.
What about fire, EMS calls? Let's get to that one. It doesn't sound as bad on the police side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, stats I take a lot of pride in. This was a little bit more difficult because, like the chief was talking about, is we have such a difference in the counties. With Hillsborough County having Nashua and Manchester, the populations are completely different than the rest of the state. Also the problems that they deal with. So luckily, I've got a fair amount of experience with estimating call volume increases due to new facilities going in, specifically in the nursing home realm in Bedford. So used those math points. I spoke with all fire and EMS agencies that cover all counties in the state. And I even did a walkthrough of the new facility up in Merrimack County, along with the EMS chief up there. So on the lower end of estimates, and I'll talk about a couple concerns that I have that why I can validate this is definitely on the lower end. Based on data provided by the fire and EMS agencies who cover the 10 county jails in the state, we anticipate a call volume of 0.08 fire calls per bed and 0.69 EMS calls per bed. For the proposed 485 bed facility, we anticipate an annual call volume of 39 fire calls and 335 EMS calls.
Say the number again, what was total?
39 fire,
Yeah.
335 EMS.
And what does that come out to cost-wise?
Cost-wise,
Yeah. Because you
so
haven't-
you figured, I think our estimates right now is about 1,100 per run.
What's our current call volume on EMS annually?
So I have that further, so the other piece that's a little hard is the Community Correction Center. There's not a lot of great data because Merrimack is the first one to do that.
However, I was actually pretty impressed with that portion of the jail when I did the walkthrough there. From talking with Bosquen Fire and Pennacook Rescue, that facility actually has very, very low impact comparatively. So those are 0.04 and 0.1 for EMS. So anyway, so we're looking for total about fire call volume increasing our total by about 6% and EMS call volume increasing by 14%. So significant.
And do we just have to eat that? The taxpayers of Goffstown pay for our fire department to respond to all those calls, and we're just paying for it?
They have to pay for a call, but.
So an EMS call would be able to seek reimbursement, however, it's likely gonna be at the Medicare rate,
yeah.
and it's gonna be significant.
So that gets us into very similar to what the chief is talking about, is the agreements that are put in place at the time of the building. So do we put something in that we can bill the county for the transport instead of going after the individual for payment? Not a lot of these people have medical insurance, so we're not going to get a dime from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that has recently changed that has made my statistical analysis extremely difficult is all the counties in the state have recently changed over from a county-based employee for medical to a private company. And that just happened last year. Since changing, both Merrimack and Hillsborough have seen more than a 30% increase in medical call volume when they changed over from their own employees to a third-party medical provider. So liability-wise, they're shipping more out. Additional concerns are, like the chief was talking about, is you have temporary holds. Instead of sending people out, so instead of sending correctional officers out for these people to go be seen in the emergency department, they just release them because they're going to release them in 12 hours anyway. So they don't send correction officers in the ambulance. As Derek pointed out, is this facility is made to run with less personnel. So that's going to happen more. One of the other impacts that I'm really concerned about is the toll on our personnel, specifically our female employees. The stuff that they deal with going into these facilities is absolutely horrendous, verbally as well as physical during transports. And when the correction officers are not there during transports, obviously that's something our personnel are impacted by. So with them reducing their staffing, the less likely our personnel are going to be covered by a corrections officer, which then means I'm not going to leave that person alone with one of these people. So that means I'm taking the engine out of service so I can have somebody else on the ambulance, which obviously means they're not able to go on another call. And because we're not going to tie up one of these guys to do it.
Well, I will point out, to interrupt you, we had that a couple times with the prison where they didn't feel comfortable, with DOC could not release people, their guards, and there were several times that I don't remember the numbers, but I remember specifically we had to escort the ambulance over to CMC because they didn't have enough staff to cover their own, people, their prisoners. Again, those were permanent prisoners and need to go to the hospital, right? So I don't know what it's going to look like when you have more inmates that are
So one of the other things
turning up
that procedurally that we're concerned about is Hillsborough County, the Valley Street Jail currently, they actually transport a lot of the inmates over to the Elliott Hospital because it's so close in their vans. For medical evals. So
For psych evals and things.
for smaller, yes, psych evals, minor medical complaints, that type of stuff, they'll actually take them in one of the corrections vans instead of calling an ambulance to reduce the load. But Elliott's really close.
Yeah.
And also with the staffing model being smaller, I'm seeing an impact there. Merrimack County, when I was there, and Merrimack County was absolutely phenomenal. I thank them very much for all of their information. The captain I walk around with actually came from Valley Street, and he was actually on the committee for what we're talking about tonight, before coming over to Merrimack, so that was extremely helpful, as well as he's also a volunteer firefighter, so he knew some of that stuff, so it was a very, very valuable resource. One of the other things is that the town of Boscawen is very concerned about is having people that are released walk down the roads. So what they do is they give courtesy rides, corrections officer gives courtesy rides to the Franklin Town Line, or the Market Basket, exit 17, something like that, down there. Again, with personnel decreasing, I'm worried about that.
You mean that they're not gonna be given a courtesy ride? Yeah. And it's right near St. A's, and you also have residential right nearby.
How does Market Basket feel about those drop-offs? I don't think I'd be thrilled as a business. Not that that relates to us, but,
So there's a lot of unanswered questions.
so we could just ship
So-
it up to Bedford Market Basket.
I feel very confident about the call volume increase it's gonna have on us for the fire and EMS, and I'm saying that's on the low end. And
You think-
their procedures will significantly can change that.
I think at this point, we should put our concerns in a letter and send them to our reps.
I think it'd be good to send it to the county commissioners as well as our reps. I can draft something up and provide that to you at the next meeting
Yeah.
of what some of the concerns are, some of the questions, and if the county is gonna move in this direction, how the town should be involved in some of these discussions.
You need a motion for that, Eric?
No, I can do that and I'll put a draft in your next packet.
That'd be great.
Good. I think that's probably all we can do right now.
Yep.
Well, probably won't have next year.
No, they estimated would be a $285 million project with a 5% annual
Yeah.
increase so, this is a very big project, and then they'd have to, I don't know what their bonding process is. I assume it involves their delegation, so.
Yeah. Tear one down, build one up, like, just give it 5 years in between each one, is that how it works?
Chief, I'd like to read your mind sometimes with those faces.
No, sometimes I wear it too obvious.
I like to make up your own story. It entertains me.
Yeah, I just, as I have the professional side of me as a chief of police in our community, and I have my own personal feelings as a resident as well. So I have to, sometimes when you see that, it's my resident side.
Yeah.
I can't speak out loud.
We all have those too,
Yeah, but
I
I
think, a
can't
little
say
bit
out
up
loud.
here. I know I do, and I'm holding it back right now.
I do think that, Derek, as the inputs from both chiefs and concerns that we may have from the operational side, I do think that there's aspects of residential that are important to kind of weigh into that as well. I know that we had a women's state prison here before. I believe this would also be not only female, it would also be male on both sides.
Yes.
So, and given the fact that we have, one of our largest taxpayers right near there, and the impact of the students there really bothers me in some way, shape, or form, that it's going to be rolling in and out of there, as well as the resident side. I think that that's one concern that we should have, and the transport. So, we should be very clear as part of the concerns, as part of that too, Derek.
Okay, thank you once again. Okay, I think we're up to the 9C, the action matrix.
Thank you, chiefs, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I saw the Donovan Spring repair for the vehicle today. I think that was,
Was that in this batch of invoices?
it
Okay.
was.
Yeah.
It was a few $1,000s. Is that the only thing wrong with that fire engine? Is the
Isn't that the
spring-
one-
Oh, that wasn't the spring issue I saw? Or was it another system that
It
had?
has to go to multiple places to get fixed.
Okay. So it's more than just a spring?
That's the first step.
Okay.
Awesome.
Any of it under warranty?
No. Too old for that.
Sounds great.
Okay, last thing is, open it up for public comment again. You guys want to comment? No, you don't want to comment.
Jim, one question though, specifically on the old business. We had asked for, and Adam was out, right? We had asked for him to provide guidance and engineering on the lights over here.
Yeah, so Adam, I think we're gonna shoot for the next meeting on that.
Okay.
We talked to you, and I provided you all the background
Yep.
information, but we're still pulling together some data on that. Cool.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, just for the record, no one's here for public comment, so I'll close public comment and entertain a motion.
Yeah, so I have a non-public request. One would be for AE, employee compensation, and the second is L, consideration of legal advice.
I'll make a motion that we enter non-public session under RSA 91A:3, Section 2, under items A and L.
Second.
Motion by Richard, second by Josh. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that a,
That's a roll call, yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
yes?
Yes.
Yes.